Greetings, fellow fans. You're tuned into Gringotts Hub, presenting to you today, what if Harry audited the Black Vaults and discovered Dumbledore had been paying the Dursleys with stolen gold? Show some love by liking and subscribing. Enjoy the story ahead. Chapter 2, The Weight of Names. The morning after the audit, Harry woke in the leaky cauldron with a clarity he hadn't felt in years. Not since before Hogwarts, really, back when survival meant reading people correctly and knowing which floorboards creaked. That boy hadn't died at number 4 Privet Drive. He'd just been buried under layers of wonder and gratitude and the desperate need to belong somewhere. Harry sat on the edge of the bed and looked at the stack of parchment on the nightstand. The audit summary. 347 pages of transactions, authorizations, and property transfers, all bearing the same looping signature, APWB Dumbledore, Magical Guardian. He'd read it twice through the night. He hadn't slept. Tom had sent up breakfast without being asked. The old barkeep had taken one look at Harry's face when he'd stumbled in last night and simply handed him a key. No questions. Harry appreciated that more than he could say. He ate mechanically. Toast, eggs, tea. His body needed fuel for what came next. The plan had crystallized somewhere around 3 in the morning, between page 200 and page 250, the section detailing property holdings. The Potters hadn't just been wealthy. They'd been landed. Manor houses, commercial properties in Diagon Alley, a stake in the Daily Prophet's parent company, farmland in Wales. All of it managed by Dumbledore's appointed proxy since 1981. All of it generating income that flowed into accounts Harry had never known existed. And the black holdings made the Potter estate look modest. Harry dressed, tucked his wand into the holster he'd bought at a shop down the alley yesterday, dragon leather, spelled to be undetectable, and gathered the parchment into the expanded moleskin pouch Hagrid had given him. Then he paused. Hagrid. Who'd carried him from the ruins of his parents' house? Who'd brought him his Hogwarts letter? Who'd given him his first birthday cake? All on Dumbledore's orders. Harry closed his eyes for exactly 3 seconds. Then he walked out the door. Gringotts was quieter in the early morning. The marble floors caught the dawn light filtering through enchanted skylights, and only a handful of witches and wizards moved between the teller lines. Harry walked past all of them, straight to the desk marked with a small brass plaque, Account Inquiries, by appointment. The goblin behind the desk looked up. His eyes narrowed, then widened fractionally. Mr. Potter. You were expected. Ragnarok said you would return quickly. He was right, Harry said. I need to see him. This way. They descended again into the depths of the bank, but this time they turned away from the vault corridors and into an administrative wing Harry hadn't known existed. The walls here were polished granite rather than rough-hewn stone, and the doors were ironwood inlaid with silver runes. Old magic. Serious magic. Ragnarok's office was at the end of a long corridor. The goblin was already seated behind his desk when Harry was shown in, a desk covered with ledgers, quills, and what appeared to be a functioning model of the entire Gringotts vault system rendered in miniature gold. Sit, Ragnarok said, gesturing to the chair across from him. It was goblin-sized, but it expanded as Harry approached. You've read it all. Every page. And? Harry set the moleskin pouch on the desk and pulled out a single sheet of parchment, his own notes, written in the tight, precise handwriting he'd developed doing Dudley's homework as well as his own. I want to do 6 things, Harry said. First, revoke all access to my vaults by any party other than myself. Second, recall any proxies operating in my name on the Wizengamot or any other body. Third, obtain a full inventory of all physical properties held by either estate. Fourth, freeze any outgoing payments currently authorized against my accounts. Fifth, establish a new account accessible only by blood key and personal password. Sixth, he looked up from the parchment. I want to know exactly how much was paid to Vernon Dursley, and I want proof that will stand up in a wizarding court. Ragnarok stared at him for a long moment. Then the goblin did something Harry had never seen a goblin do. He smiled. Not the sharp-toothed grimace of professional courtesy. An actual smile, thin and fierce, like a blade being drawn. "The first 5 are already in progress," Ragnarok said. "I ordered them initiated last night, after your initial audit request revealed the scope of the irregularities. Gringotts takes the security of its clients' assets very seriously, Mr. Potter. The previous arrangements were tolerated, because they bore the signature of a recognized magical guardian operating under the authority of the Gringotts child welfare statutes. But you are 16. Under goblin law, you have been of age since your 13th year. Under wizarding law, you became Lord Black upon the death of Sirius Black, which emancipates you regardless of age." Harry blinked. "I'm emancipated? You have been for 6 days. No one informed you?" "No one informed me of a lot of things." Ragnarok pulled a heavy leather folder from his desk drawer and slid it across. "This is your lordship package. House Potter and House Black. The rings, the Gringotts seats, the full property manifesto. Normally, this would be delivered by the family solicitor. However, the Potter family solicitor, one Albus Dumbledore, self-appointed in 1981, has been removed from that position as of 6 hours ago." Harry opened the folder. Inside, nestled in velvet, were 2 rings. The Potter ring was gold set with a ruby, simple, old, warm to the touch even through the velvet. The black ring was silver with a dark stone that seemed to drink the light. Both hummed with magic when Harry reached for them. "If I put these on," Harry said slowly, "what happens? You become, in the eyes of magic itself, Lord Potter Black. You claim all rights, properties, and obligations of both houses. You gain 2 seats on the Gringotts. You become one of the wealthiest wizards in Britain." Ragnarok paused. "And you become someone that no one, not Dumbledore, not the Ministry, not anyone, can legally treat as a child ever again." Harry picked up the Potter ring first. It was warm in his palm, almost alive. He could feel it reaching for him, testing him, recognizing him. He slid it onto his right ring finger. Magic surged through him like stepping into sunlight after a long winter. He gasped, not in pain, but in something like homecoming. Knowledge settled into his bones, the history of his house, the weight of his name, the power of his blood. Not specific memories, but understanding. He was the last Potter. The magic knew him. It had been waiting. The black ring was different. When he picked it up, it was cold, and it didn't reach for him. It waited. It demanded. Harry met the ring with his mind, opened himself to it, not with submission but with certainty. "I am the heir Sirius chose. I claim what is mine." The ring's magic tested him like ice water, probing for weakness, for doubt. Finding none, it yielded, not warmly, but with grudging respect. The Black family magic was older, darker, more demanding. It didn't love its lords. It obeyed them. He slid it onto his left ring finger. Both rings flared once, then settled. Harry looked down at his hands and flexed his fingers. He felt, more. Not different. Just more himself. Like he'd been wearing clothes 2 sizes too small his entire life and had finally found ones that fit. "There," Ragnarok said quietly. "It is done. The notifications have already gone to the Gringotts, the Ministry of Magic, and, regrettably but necessarily, all parties previously authorized to act in your name." A pause. "Including Albus Dumbledore." "Good," Harry said. "I want him to know. Now, about the Dursley payments." Ragnarok pulled out a second folder, thinner but somehow heavier. "Monthly payments of 500 galleons, converted to pounds sterling and deposited into Vernon Dursley's Barclays account on the 1st of each month, beginning November 1981. That is approximately £2,500 per month in Muggle currency. The total over 15 years comes to 90,000 galleons, or approximately £450,000. Harry stared at the number. £450,000. The Dursleys had received £450,000 to raise him, and he'd slept in a cupboard. He'd worn Dudley's cast-offs. He'd gone hungry. The authorization paperwork, Ragnarok continued, specifies that the funds were for the care and maintenance of the Potter heir, to ensure his safety and comfort during his minority. The payments were drawn from the Potter family vault. Vault 687 was your trust vault, but the payments came from the main Potter vault, 712. And they spent it. They spent it. Our Muggle liaison department tracked the funds at my request. A significant portion went toward the mortgage on number 4 Privet Drive, which was purchased in 1982, 7 months after you were placed there. Before that, the Dursleys rented a flat in Colston. Ragnarok's lip curled. They bought the house with your money, Mr. Potter. They also purchased their vehicles, funded their son's private schooling, and took annual holidays. All paid for, ultimately, from your family vault. The rage was there. Harry could feel it living in his chest like a hot coal. But he didn't let it control him. He breathed it in, let it fuel him, and kept his voice level. And Dumbledore never checked. Never verified I was being cared for. There are no records of any inspection or welfare check ordered by Albus Dumbledore in 15 years. There is, however, a letter, included in your file, dated September 1991, from Dumbledore to the Dursleys, thanking them for keeping Harry humble and grounded and noting that the boy's upbringing will serve him well in the trials to come. Harry went very still. Keeping Harry humble and grounded. Starving. Beaten. Locked in a cupboard. Told he was worthless, that his parents were drunks who died in a car crash, that he was a burden and a freak. Humble and grounded. I want a copy of that letter, Harry said. His voice was calm. Perfectly calm. Certified by Gringotts as authentic. Already prepared. Ragnarok slid an envelope across the desk. Now. Regarding the Black Vaults, the irregularities there are different in nature but equal in scope. Shall I continue? Please. The Black Family Vault, Vault 711, has been accessed 43 times since the incarceration of Sirius Black in 1981. All accesses were authorized by Dumbledore, who claimed emergency proxy rights through a Wisengamot order obtained in 1985, an order which was, I should note, sealed from public record. He couldn't have been Sirius's proxy. Sirius was a convicted criminal with no trial. Precisely. The legal basis was creative. Dumbledore argued before a closed session of the Wisengamot that as the Black family had no competent head, Sirius imprisoned, Regulus dead, the others either deceased or under suspicion, the vault required a caretaker to prevent dark artifacts from falling into dangerous hands. Ragnarok's expression made clear what he thought of that argument. The Wisengamot agreed. No one questioned why the caretaker needed access to the gold as well as the artifacts. How much? 212,000 galleons over 15 years. Approximately 60% was channeled into an organization called the Order of the Phoenix through a series of shell accounts. The remainder was distributed among various recipients, some legitimate charitable causes, others more political in nature. He funded his private army with stolen gold. That is one interpretation. Another is that he used the resources of a noble house to fight a war that the ministry refused to acknowledge. The morality is for you to judge, Lord Potterblack. The legality is quite clear, it was theft. Harry leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. The scope of it was staggering. Not just the money, the control. Dumbledore had positioned himself as the gatekeeper to Harry's entire existence. His placement with the Dursleys. His ignorance of the wizarding world. His financial dependence on a single trust vault while a fortune sat untouched. His isolation every summer, trapped with people who hated him, while Dumbledore held the purse strings and pulled them just tight enough to keep the Dursleys compliant without making Harry's life too comfortable. It wasn't neglect. It was engineering. "I need a solicitor," Harry said, opening his eyes. "Not a Dumbledore appointment. Not anyone connected to the Order or the Ministry. Someone independent. Someone good." "I anticipated this requirement," Ragnock said. "Gringotts recommends the firm of Tonks and Associates, specifically, Edward Tonks. He is a Muggle-born wizard, trained in both wizarding and Muggle law, with no political affiliations and no known connection to Dumbledore beyond his wife's cousin." Harry straightened. "Tonks? As in Nymphadora Tonks?" "His daughter, yes. An Auror, and a member of the Order of the Phoenix, though given recent revelations, I suspect her loyalties may be fluid." Harry thought about Tonks. Pink hair and a laugh like a bark, clumsy as anything but sharp underneath it. She'd liked Sirius. She'd grieved for him. And she was a black by blood, one of the few who'd been blasted off the family tree and could now be restored. "Set up a meeting with Ted Tonks," Harry said. "Today, if possible. And, can I send a message to Nymphadora Tonks directly? Privately? Gringotts courier service is available to account holders. No owl interception is possible with our methods." "Good. I'll need parchment." Ragnock provided it. Harry wrote quickly, his new rings catching the lamplight as his quill moved. "Tonks, I need to talk to you. Not order business. Family business. Black family business. Your blood, and you deserve to know what I've found. Don't tell anyone. Especially not Dumbledore. Meet me at the Leaky Cauldron, Room 7, tonight at 8. Harry, Lord Potter Black, apparently. I'll explain." He folded it, sealed it with a press of the black ring, which produced an elegant wax seal without any actual wax, just magic, and handed it to Ragnock. "One more thing," Harry said. "The Dursleys. I'm going to visit them today." Ragnock raised an eyebrow. "Is that wise?" "Probably not. But I need to hear what they have to say. And I need them to know the money's stopped." Privet Drive looked exactly the same. It always looked the same trimmed hedges, the same gleaming cars, the same suffocating normality pressing down like a weight. Harry walked up the path to number 4 in broad daylight, wearing his wizarding robes and not caring who saw. He'd considered and rejected a dozen approaches on the night bus ride over. Rage. Cold fury. Legal threats. In the end, he'd settled on something simpler, the truth, delivered without emotion, and then a question. He knocked. Petunia opened the door. She was wearing a floral apron and her face went through its usual rapid journey, recognition, fear, disgust, before settling on outrage. "What are you doing here? It's not summer yet. You can't just," she stopped. Her eyes had landed on the rings. On the robes. On the way Harry was standing, not hunched, not apologetic, not the scrawny boy who flinched at loud voices. "What are you wearing?" "Hello, Aunt Petunia. I need to speak with you and Uncle Vernon. It's about money." Something shifted in her face. The outrage didn't disappear, but it was joined by something else. Wariness. Maybe even a flicker of guilt, though that might have been wishful thinking. "Vernon's at work." "No, he isn't. It's Saturday." She pressed her lips into a thin line. "You can't just show up and demand." "I'm not demanding anything. I'm informing you. The payments have stopped, Aunt Petunia. As of last night. The 500 galleons a month, approximately £2,500, that Albus Dumbledore has been depositing into Vernon's account since November 1981. It's over." Petunia went white. Not pink, not red, white. The blood drained from her face so fast Harry thought she might faint. "I don't know what you're, don't. Harry's voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of the Potter ring, the authority of the Black Ring, and 15 years of sleeping in a cupboard. Don't lie to me. Not today. I have bank records, Aunt Petunia. I have the amounts, the dates, the account numbers. £450,000 over 15 years, paid for my care and maintenance. And we both know exactly how much of that was spent on me. Who's at the door? Vernon's voice boomed from the sitting room. Petunia. If it's those bloody Jehovah's, it's Harry, Petunia said faintly. He knows about the money. The silence from the sitting room was absolute. Then heavy footsteps, and Vernon appeared behind Petunia, his face already purpling. Now see here, boy, don't call me boy. Harry didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The magic in him responded to his intent, and the air around him seemed to grow heavier, denser. Vernon actually took a step back. My name is Harry. Lord Harry Potter Black, if you want to be formal about it. And I'm not here to threaten you or hex you. I'm here to understand something. He looked between them, Vernon, blustering and afraid underneath it. Petunia, pale and rigid with something that might have been shame. You were paid, Harry said. Generously. More than enough to raise a child in comfort. And instead, you put me in a cupboard. You starved me. You let your son use me as a punching bag. You told me my parents died in a car crash. He paused. Why? Vernon opened his mouth, but Petunia spoke first. Because we were told to. Vernon spun to face her. Petunia, no, Vernon. He knows. What's the point? She looked at Harry, and for the first time in his memory, there was something honest in her eyes. Not warmth. Not love. But honesty. That man. Dumbledore. When he left you on our doorstep, in November, in the cold, with nothing but a letter, the letter said we had to take you in. That you needed protection from your mother's blood. That we'd be paid for the inconvenience. Inconvenience, Harry repeated flatly. His word, not mine. The first payment came a week later. And then, she swallowed. A month after that, another letter. Explaining that you needed to be kept, unaware. That you couldn't know about magic. That it was essential that you not be given special treatment. That if you were too happy, too comfortable, too loved, the protection would weaken. Harry stared at her. He said the magic, blood magic, he called it, needed you to consider this place home, but not want to be here. That you needed to be. She looked away. Unhappy. Desperate to leave. So that when you went to that school, you'd be grateful. You'd be loyal. You'd fight for the world that rescued you. The silence stretched between them like a held breath. And you believed him, Harry said. He's a wizard, Petunia said, as if that explained everything. And maybe, in her world, it did. The world where magic was terrifying and incomprehensible and the people who wielded it were not to be questioned or defied. We didn't, Vernon started, then stopped. For once in his life, the big man seemed to shrink. We didn't like you, boy. Harry. I won't pretend we did. You were strange and your lot were dangerous and we never wanted you here. But the money was good and the old man said it had to be this way. Said if we treated you well, the magic wouldn't work and those dark wizard types would find you and kill all of us. Harry's jaw tightened. The Blood Wards. Dumbledore had weaponized the Blood Wards, told the Dursleys that Harry's misery was necessary for their safety. Made them afraid to be kind. Not that they'd needed much encouragement. Did he ever check on me? Harry asked. Did anyone ever come to verify I was all right? That cat woman, Petunia said. Years ago, before you got your letter. She lived on the street for a few months. And there was a man, shabby clothes, friendly, who moved in 3 doors down for a year when you were about 8. They watched, but they never came inside. Never asked about you. Arabella Figg. And probably Mundungus Fletcher or Remus Lupin. Watchers. Not protectors. Just watchers, making sure the weapon was properly stored. Harry looked at his aunt and uncle, really looked at them. They were small people. Petty, cruel, frightened. They'd taken money to abuse a child and told themselves it was necessary. They'd believed a wizard's letter over their own humanity, or maybe the letter had just given them permission to do what they'd have done anyway. It didn't matter anymore. The payments have stopped, Harry said again. Permanently. I won't be coming back here, ever. The blood wards are my concern now, not yours. You'll never hear from me or my world again. He paused. I won't be pursuing the money. Keep it. You'll have to live with how you earned it. He turned to leave. Harry. He stopped but didn't turn around. Petunia's voice was thin, barely a whisper. Your mother. She wasn't, she was a good person. I was jealous and I was frightened and I told you terrible things about her. But she was good. Harry stood very still for a moment. Then he walked away without looking back. He was done with Privet Drive. He'd come for answers and he'd gotten them, answers that made everything worse and better at the same time. Worse because Dumbledore's manipulation ran deeper than even the financial records showed. Better because now Harry knew the full shape of the cage. And you couldn't escape a cage you couldn't see. The night bus dropped him back at the Leaky Cauldron at 4:30 in the afternoon. Harry had time before Tonks arrived, and he used it. He wrote letters. Careful, precise letters on Gringotts quality parchment, sealed with either the Potter or Black ring depending on the recipient. To Amelia Bones, head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, a formal request for a meeting to discuss financial irregularities involving a minor's estate, with enough specifics to intrigue but not enough to alert. To Augusta Longbottom, proxy for House Longbottom on the Wisengamot, a politely worded introduction, Lord to Regent, expressing a desire to discuss matters of mutual interest regarding the governance of our world. To the Daily Prophet, care of the editorial desk, nothing yet. But the letter was drafted. He'd hold it in reserve. To Hermione, this one was harder. He rewrote it 3 times before settling on something honest. Hermione, I found out some things about Dumbledore that I need to tell you in person. It's not speculation and it's not paranoia. I have documented proof. I know you trust him. I did too. But I need you to be open to the possibility that he's not what we thought. I'm at the Leaky Cauldron. Come when you can. Bring Ron if you want, he should hear this too. Love, Harry to Ron, a separate note, shorter, blunter. Ron, Dumbledore's been stealing from me. Literally. Gold from my vaults. I have the receipts. Meet me at the Leaky Cauldron when you can. This is going to get ugly. Harry he sent them all via Gringotts courier, small, sleek hawks that moved faster than owls and couldn't be intercepted by the monitoring charms he now suspected were on Hedwig. That was another thing, when this was over, he was having Hedwig checked for tracking spells. At 7:30, someone knocked on his door. Harry checked with a quick hominum revelio, one person, familiar magical signature, and opened it. Ted Tonks was a comfortable-looking man in his 50s, with sandy hair going gray and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He carried a leather briefcase that had clearly seen decades of use, and he wore wizarding robes over what appeared to be a tweed suit jacket. The combination shouldn't have worked, but it suited him. Lord Potterblack, Ted said, extending a hand. Ted Tonks. The goblin said you needed a solicitor in a hurry. Given what Ragnarok told me, I can see why. Harry shook his hand firmly. Come in. And just Harry is fine. Harry, then. And I'm Ted. He settled into the armchair by the window and opened his briefcase with practiced efficiency. Ragnarok gave me the summary, financial malfeasance by a magical guardian, unauthorized access to sealed vaults, diversion of minors' funds. I've handled cases like this before, though never at this scale and never with principals this prominent. He looked at Harry over his glasses. You understand that if we move forward, we're going against Albus Dumbledore, the most powerful wizard in Britain. Chief Warlock of the Wizengamot. The man who defeated Grindelwald. I'm aware. And you want to proceed? I do. Ted nodded slowly. Good. Because I spent the afternoon reading the documents Ragnarok sent over, and frankly, Harry, in 30 years of legal practice, I've never seen anything this clear-cut. Dumbledore didn't even try to hide it properly. The authorizations are in his own hand. The Wizengamot orders granting him access are public record, if sealed. And the stated purpose of the Dursley payments, care and maintenance of the Potter heir, creates a straightforward breach of fiduciary duty claim when contrasted with your actual living conditions. He paused. Which I understand were, not comfortable. I slept in a cupboard under the stairs until I was 11, Harry said levelly. I was given Dudley's old clothes. I was underfed, overworked, and routinely told I was worthless. Vernon hit me when I did something freakish. The Dursleys used the money to buy their house, their cars, and their son's education. Ted's face tightened. He set down his quill and looked at Harry directly. I'm sorry. Both as your solicitor and as a father. That should never have happened to you. It shouldn't have. But it did, and Dumbledore either arranged it deliberately or enabled it through criminal negligence. Either way, I want accountability. What does accountability look like to you? Criminal prosecution. Civil recovery. Public exposure. Harry had thought about this. I don't want him in Azkaban. Despite everything, I don't believe he did it out of malice, he did it out of arrogance. He decided he knew what was best for me and never questioned that assumption, not once in 15 years. What I want is, the truth on public record. Full financial restitution. His removal from any position of authority over students or minors. And an end to his political use of my name and my family's resources. Ted was writing rapidly. Achievable. All of it. The civil route is cleaner, lower burden of proof, and we control the narrative. We file with the Wizengamot Civil Division, which triggers a mandatory hearing. Dumbledore can't block it because he'd have to recuse himself as Chief Warlock given his involvement. He looked up. Timeline. As fast as possible. But I want all my allies in place before we file. I don't want to give him time to spin this or destroy evidence. Smart. Gringotts records can't be tampered with, goblin magic seals them at the point of transaction, so the financial evidence is ironclad. What we need is corroborating testimony, the Dursley statement about the letters, any witnesses to your living conditions, documentation of your medical and nutritional history, another knock on the door. Harry checked, 2 signatures this time, both familiar. That'll be your daughter, Harry said. Anne, he frowned, rechecking. And someone else. Wait. He approached the door carefully, wand in hand. Who's there? It's Tonks, Harry. And Mum came with me. Dad texted her that he was coming here and she insisted, said if it's family business, she should be there. Harry opened the door to find Tonks, hair currently a deep, angry purple, standing next to a tall, elegant woman with dark hair and features that screamed black family lineage despite her warm smile. Andromeda Tonks née Black. Harry, Tonks said, pushing past him into the room with her characteristic lack of ceremony. She saw her father, raised an eyebrow, then turned back to Harry. All right. I got your message. I spent all afternoon trying not to think about what black family business could mean and I came up with about 40 terrible scenarios. Which one is it? Probably number 41, Harry said. Sit down. Both of you. Andromeda was already staring at his hands. Those rings, she breathed. You've claimed both houses? This morning. Then Sirius really did, her voice caught. For all that she'd been disowned, cut off, blasted from the tapestry, Sirius had been her favorite cousin. Harry could see the grief in her eyes, fresher than he'd expected. He left everything to me, Harry said gently. And the first thing I did was run an audit. What I found. He looked at Ted. Can I? Ted nodded. Their family. And Dora should hear this in particular, given her order involvement. Harry laid it out for them. All of it. The payments to the Dursleys. The raids on the Black Vault. The sealed Wisengamot orders. The letter from Dumbledore thanking the Dursleys for keeping Harry humble. The properties managed without authorization. The political seats wielded without consent. By the time he finished, Tonks's hair had gone from purple to a deep, burning red. Andromeda was sitting very still, her hands clasped in her lap, her face a mask that Harry recognized, the Black family mask, the one that hid volcanic fury behind perfect composure. I'm going to kill him, Tonks said flatly. You're not, Harry said. You're going to help me do something much worse. You're going to help me hold him accountable in front of the entire wizarding world. The order, Tonks said, her mind already racing. The order's been funded with black money. Sirius's money. Some of it. And some from my vault. He told us the funding came from private donations. Anonymous benefactors who believed in the cause. Tonks laughed bitterly. I suppose that's technically true. The donations were just, involuntary. Andromeda spoke for the first time since the revelation. Her voice was quiet and precise, and it carried the weight of someone who'd grown up navigating the politics of the Sacred 28. Harry. You need to understand something about what you've just done, claiming both houses, revoking Dumbledore's access. He will have been notified. He is likely, at this very moment, trying to determine how to regain control of the situation. He will come to you with explanations. Justifications. He will invoke the war, Voldemort, the greater good. He will be reasonable and grandfatherly and deeply, deeply sorry. I know. And he will be lying. Not about the reasons, he probably does believe his reasons were good. But about the conclusion. He will try to convince you that the appropriate response is forgiveness. Understanding. A quiet resolution between the two of you. He will suggest that public exposure would be dangerous, that it would weaken the light side, embolden Voldemort, harm the cause. Her eyes were dark and steady. He will make you feel guilty for wanting justice. Harry met her gaze. He can try. Andromeda studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. You are not the child they raised you to be, are you? No, Harry said. I'm not. Tonks had been pacing, her Auror's mind working through implications. The order meeting's tomorrow night. He'll try to get to you before then. We need a plan for when he shows up. He won't find me, Harry said. I'm moving tonight. Gringotts has properties. I own a townhouse in London that nobody knows about because Dumbledore never bothered to look at the property inventory. He just took the gold. Which townhouse? Number 12, Grimmauld Place is the obvious one, but it's compromised. Half the order's been there. No. Harry pulled out the property manifest. There's a Potter property. A flat in Kensington. Unplottable, blood-warded, and it hasn't been occupied since 1981. I had the goblins reactivate the wards this afternoon. Ted looked impressed. You've been busy. I haven't slept, Harry said. But I'm running on something better than sleep right now. He looked around the room at the three of them, his solicitor, his cousin, what was Andromeda to him? Aunt by adoption, perhaps. The family he was choosing. Here's what happens next, Harry said. Ted, I need the civil case prepared and ready to file within a week. Tonks, I need you to quietly check with the other Order members. Find out who's questioning things, who's loyal to Dumbledore personally versus loyal to the cause. I need to know who my allies are. And me? Andromeda asked. Harry hesitated, then made a decision. He pulled off the black ring, felt the cold magic protest, and held it up. It hung in the air between them, dark and ancient. You were born a black. You were cast out for the crime of falling in love with a good man. As Lord Black, I formally restore you to the family. He focused his intent on the ring, and felt the family magic respond, grudgingly, as always, but obediently. You, Andromeda Tonks nay Black, and you, Nymphadora Tonks, are blacks again. With all the rights and privileges that entails. Both women gasped. Andromeda's hand went to her chest as she felt the family magic settle over her like a cloak, warm despite its source, welcoming despite its nature. Tonks stumbled, caught herself on the back of a chair, and stared at Harry with wide eyes as her hair cycled through a dozen colors before settling on a deep, lustrous black. Harry, Andromeda whispered. You didn't have to. Yes, I did. Your family. The only family I'm choosing to keep. He slid the ring back on. Now. Andromeda, you know pure-blood politics. You grew up in it. I need you to help me navigate the Wizengamot. I have 2 seats I've never used in a political landscape I don't understand. I need to understand it before I walk in there. Then I will teach you, Andromeda said, and her smile was fierce and proud and full of something Harry had rarely seen directed at him, genuine respect. The Wizengamot won't know what hit them. They talked for another 2 hours, strategy, timeline, contingencies. Ted walked them through the legal framework. Tonks provided intelligence on the Order's internal dynamics, who was a true believer in Dumbledore, who was pragmatic, who might turn if given reason. Andromeda laid out the Wizengamot's factions, the old alliances, the debts and grudges that still shaped wizarding politics. By 10 o'clock, they had a plan. Not just a reaction to what Dumbledore had done, but a campaign. Harry would take his seats on the Wizengamot, build a coalition, and pursue the civil case, simultaneously establishing himself as a political force and holding Dumbledore accountable. He would fight the war against Voldemort on his own terms, with his own resources, answering to no one. When the Tonks family finally left, Ted promising to have preliminary filings ready within 3 days, Andromeda listing political contacts she'd reach out to, Tonks volunteering to be Harry's eyes inside the Order, Harry stood alone in the room and breathed. The anger was still there. It would probably always be there. But it was controlled now. Channeled. It had direction and purpose and a target. He packed his things quickly, shrinking his trunk with a casual wave of his wand. The underage trace was, according to Goblin law, invalid for an emancipated lord, and Harry was done pretending to be bound by rules designed to keep him helpless. He'd deal with the Ministry's outdated trace later. Right now, it simply didn't matter. The Potter flat in Kensington was exactly as Ragnarok had described, a handsome Georgian building from the outside, and on the inside, a spacious wizard's residence with blood wards that sang when Harry crossed the threshold. The magic of the place recognized him, welcomed him, in the same way the ring had. He was home, in a place he'd never been. Harry set his trunk down in the master bedroom and looked out the window at the London skyline. The city glittered below him, muggle and magical, all of it alive and moving. Tomorrow, Dumbledore would know. Would react. Would come with his reasons and his explanations and his greater good. Harry was ready. He was no one's weapon. No one's pawn. No one's project. He was Lord Potterblack, and he was just getting started. Sleep, when it finally came at 2 in the morning, was dreamless. No Voldemort. No visions. Harry didn't know if that was the new wards, the ring magic, or simply the fact that his acclimacy had been sharpened to a razor's edge by pure focused fury over the past 36 hours, but he'd take it. He woke at 7 to a Gringotts hawk tapping at the window. The message was from Ragnarok, brief and pointed. Lord Potterblack, your former headmaster attempted to access Vault 712 at 6:04 this morning. He was denied entry and informed that his authorization has been permanently revoked. He did not take the news well. He then requested a meeting with you through official Gringotts channels. We informed him that our client's schedule is managed by his solicitor. He is now at Hogwarts. Our intelligence suggests he has sent owls to Minerva McGonagall, Severus Snape, Alastor Moody, and Kingsley Shacklebolt. We believe he is calling an emergency meeting of his inner circle. Guard your position. Ragnarok, Director of Client Services, Gringotts Bank. Harry read the message twice, then smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who'd spent 15 years being moved around a chessboard and was now, finally, making moves of his own. He made breakfast, actual breakfast, in his own kitchen, in his own flat, with food he'd chosen himself, and sat down to plan his next step. Dumbledore was scrambling. Good. Let him scramble. Let him feel, for the first time in decades, what it was like to not be in control. At 8:15, another hawk arrived. This one from Tonks. Harry, emergency order meeting called for tonight. Dumbledore told everyone it's about security concerns regarding the Potter boy. He called you a boy. I nearly bit through my tongue. Mum says to tell you he's running scared. When Dumbledore calls emergency meetings, it means he's lost the initiative. I'll be there. I'll report everything. Also, your friend Hermione sent a message via my Patronus. How does she know how to do that, asking where you are? She sounded worried. Ron apparently came by the leaky cauldron last night looking for you after you'd already left. What do you want me to tell them? Harry considered. Hermione and Ron. His best friends. The people who'd walked through fire with him, literally and figuratively. They deserved to know the truth. But they were also still at home, still in the orbit of the Order, still likely to be intercepted or monitored. He wrote back, Tonks, tell Hermione and Ron I'm safe and I'll explain everything soon. Don't tell them where I am yet, not because I don't trust them, but because Dumbledore might use legilimency and they don't have occlumency shields. I'll reach out to them directly within 48 hours. At the Order meeting, listen, don't react. Whatever he says about me, don't defend me. I need you invisible right now, just watching and reporting. Your value is that no one suspects you. Thank you for this. For all of it. He sent the hawk and poured himself more tea. The day stretched ahead of him full of possibility, meetings to arrange, skills to sharpen, a world to prepare for his arrival. Lord Potterblack had work to do. Chapter 3, The Chessboard. The Hogwarts Express was 3 weeks away. Harry had no intention of waiting that long. He spent the next 5 days in constant motion, mornings with Ted Tonks reviewing legal strategy, afternoons at Gringotts going through property inventories and artifact catalogs with goblin assessors, evenings with Andromeda learning the intricate dance of Wisengamot politics. He slept 5 hours a night and woke hungry for more. On the third day, he met with Amelia Bones. She received him in her office at the Ministry, a sparse, functional space that told Harry everything he needed to know about the woman. No portraits of herself shaking hands with important people. No awards on display. Just case files, a sneakoscope on a shelf, and a photograph of a young girl who must have been Susan. Lord Potterblack, she said, standing as he entered. Her monocle caught the light. I admit, your letter intrigued me. Director Bones. Harry shook her hand, firm, direct. Thank you for seeing me on short notice. When a 16-year-old lord of 2 ancient and noble houses requests a meeting about financial irregularities, one makes time. She gestured to the chair across from her desk. Sit. Tell me what you found. Harry told her. Not everything, Ted had advised holding certain details back for the formal filing, but enough. The unauthorized vault access. The Dursley payments. The sealed Wiesengemot orders. The diversion of black family gold to private organizations. Bones listened without interrupting. Her face was carved from granite, no reaction, no surprise. Just focus. When Harry finished, she was quiet for a long moment. You have documentation. Gringotts certified records. My solicitor will submit them formally when we file. And you want what from me, specifically? 2 things. First, I want to know if the DMLE would have jurisdiction over any criminal aspects of this case, separate from the civil action I'm pursuing. It would. Financial fraud against a minor's estate is a criminal matter regardless of who committed it. Good. I'm not asking you to act on that yet, I want the civil case resolved first. But I wanted it on record that I brought this to you voluntarily, before any public disclosure, as a matter of good faith. Bones nodded slowly. And the second thing? I'd like to know where you stand. Politically. Not as the head of the DMLE, as a Wiesengemot member and the regent of House Bones. Something flickered in her eyes. Respect, maybe. Or just recognition that she was dealing with someone who'd done his homework. I stand for the law, she said carefully. I have great respect for Albus Dumbledore's contributions to our world. But no one is above accountability. If your evidence is as solid as you suggest, and I have no reason to doubt Gringotts certified records, then what you're describing is a serious breach of fiduciary duty at minimum, and potentially criminal malfeasance. That's all I needed to hear. Lord Potterblack. She caught his eye as he rose to leave. Be careful. Dumbledore has friends everywhere, not because he's bought them, but because he's spent 50 years being indispensable. Many people owe him their lives. That kind of loyalty doesn't break easily, even in the face of evidence. I know, Harry said. But some loyalty is based on a lie. And lies only hold as long as the truth stays hidden. He left her office feeling the pieces clicking into place. Bones wouldn't move prematurely, she was too cautious, too principled for that. But she was a fulcrum. When the time came, having her aware and ready would matter. On the 4th day, he met Augusta Longbottom for tea at a wizarding club in Mayfair that Harry hadn't known existed until Andromeda mentioned it. The Avalon Club occupied what appeared from the outside to be a nondescript Georgian townhouse, but inside it was all dark wood, leather chairs, and the quiet hum of old money. Augusta was exactly as Neville had described her, formidable, sharp-eyed, and dressed in a hat that could probably be seen from space. She looked Harry up and down as he approached her table, taking in the rings, the robes, tailored now, Andromeda had insisted, and whatever else she was reading in his bearing. You look like your grandfather, she said without preamble. Charles had that same way of walking into a room like he already owned it. Sit down. The tea here is adequate. Harry sat. Thank you for meeting me, Regent Longbottom. Augusta. We're allies or we're nothing, no point standing on ceremony between potential friends. She poured tea with the precise movements of someone who'd been doing it for 70 years. Andromeda contacted me. She was circumspect. But I'm not a fool. You're building a coalition and you want Longbottom in it. I am. And I do. Against Dumbledore. Against anyone who abuses their power over those who can't defend themselves. Augusta set down the teapot and fixed him with a stare that could have stripped paint. My grandson thinks the world of you, Harry. And I think the world of my grandson, even if I haven't always shown it well. So I'll be direct, what did Dumbledore do? Harry was direct. He gave her the same summary he'd given Bones, the financial details, the scope, the evidence. But he added something he hadn't shared with the DMLE director. He engineered my childhood, Augusta. Not just neglected it, designed it. He wanted me desperate, grateful, and dependent. He wanted a weapon, and he built one. Augusta's teacup had stopped halfway to her lips. She set it down very carefully. You have proof of intent? Not just the financial mismanagement, but deliberate. I have a letter in his own hand thanking my relatives for keeping me humble and grounded, written with full knowledge of the conditions I was living in. And I have the testimony of my aunt, who says Dumbledore instructed them, in writing, to treat me poorly. That the blood wards required it. Blood wards don't work that way, Augusta said flatly. They require love, not suffering. Everyone with a newt in ancient magic knows that. Exactly. Augusta was quiet for a long time. She drank her tea. She looked out the window at Mayfair, at the muggles walking past without a clue about the world existing alongside theirs. My Frank and Alice, she said finally, quietly. They were Order members. Dumbledore's people. They fought because he asked them to, and they paid a price worse than death. I have wondered, over the years, whether they needed to be there that night. Whether Dumbledore knew the risk and sent them anyway because they were useful. I can't answer that, Harry said honestly. I don't know. No. But the pattern you're describing, using people as instruments, managing their lives for his purposes, it fits. She straightened in her chair, and when she looked at Harry again, the grief was gone, replaced by iron. You have Longbottom's support. When you file, I'll be standing with you. And when you take your Wisengamot seats, I'll make sure you have at least 7 other houses ready to form a voting bloc. 7. I've been doing this for 30 years, dear boy. I have favors to call in. She smiled, thin, fierce. It's about time someone reminded Albus Dumbledore that he serves at the pleasure of the Wisengamot, not the other way around. On the 5th night, Tonks came to the Kensington flat with her report from the Order meeting. She looked exhausted. Her hair was mouse brown, the color it went when she was too tired or stressed to maintain her metamorphmagus abilities. Harry made her tea without asking and waited. It was bad, she said, curling into the corner of the sofa. He's spinning it as a security concern. Told everyone you'd had a breakdown after Sirius's death. That you were making impulsive decisions, being manipulated by the goblins, potentially under Imperius or some kind of dark influence. Harry snorted. Creative. Moody didn't buy it. I could tell, he had that look, the one where his eye does that extra rotation when he's hearing bullshit. But he didn't say anything. McGonagall looked uncomfortable but didn't push back. Snape was. She made a face. Snape was Snape. Made some comment about your arrogance and your father's worst qualities. And Remus? Tonks hesitated. Remus was quiet. He asked Dumbledore directly whether you were safe, and Dumbledore said yes. Then Remus asked why you hadn't been told about the Black inheritance properly, through official channels and with support. Dumbledore said the timing was delicate and that he'd intended to manage the transition personally. Manage, Harry repeated. I know. But Harry, Remus is conflicted. I could see it. He wants to trust Dumbledore, but he also loves you. If you reached out to him, not yet. I can't risk it. Dumbledore's a Legilimens, and Remus sees him regularly. Until we file, I need information security above all else. Tonks nodded reluctantly. What about Hermione and Ron? It's been 5 days. Tomorrow. I'm bringing them in tomorrow. The filing happens in 3 days, I can't keep them in the dark any longer, and honestly, I need them. He paused. I miss them. You're allowed to miss people, Harry. I know. He looked down at his hands, at the rings that had become so natural so quickly. I keep thinking about all the times Dumbledore gave me just enough information to be dangerous. Just enough truth to make me act without understanding. Hermione and Ron were always there to pick up the pieces when his plans went sideways. First year with the stone, second year with the chamber, third year with Sirius, every single time, we survived because of each other, not because of him. So tell them that. They'll understand. Hermione will understand immediately. Ron might need longer, his whole family is order. Give him the chance. He might surprise you. He met them the next afternoon at a Muggle cafe in South Kensington, neutral territory, no magical monitoring, and Harry cast enough privacy wards around their corner booth to keep out anything short of a direct assault. Ron arrived first, looking harried and still in Muggle clothes that were slightly too short in the arms. He spotted Harry and the relief on his face was so genuine it made something in Harry's chest ache. "Mate," Ron said, sliding into the booth. "What the hell is going on?" "Mum's in a state, Dumbledore told her you've gone rogue or something. She tried to get me to stay home but I told her to stuff it." "I appreciate that." "Yeah, well, you said he'd been stealing from you. That's not really something you ignore, is it?" Hermione arrived 4 minutes later, out of breath, her hair escaping from a hasty bun. She looked at Harry, really looked, taking in the rings, the new robes, the something different in the way he carried himself, and sat down without a word. Her eyes were already working, processing, cataloging. "Start from the beginning," she said. So he did. The whole thing, from the moment he'd walked into Gringotts to the meeting with Amelia Bones. He showed them copies of the key documents, not the originals, which were with Ted, but certified duplicates. The transaction records. Dumbledore's letter to the Dursleys. The sealed Wisengamot orders. The Black Vault access logs. Ron's face went through a journey as Harry talked. Confusion gave way to disbelief, then to anger, not the hot, explosive Weasley temper, but something slower and darker. His ears went red, then his whole face. His hands clenched around his teacup until the ceramic creaked. Hermione didn't go red. She went pale. She read every document Harry showed her, twice, with the intensity she usually reserved for exams. And when she set the last page down, her hands were trembling. "The letter," she said. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "He told them to, he instructed them, yes. Harry, this is," she pressed her hand to her mouth. "I defended him. Every time you questioned him. 4th year, 5th year, I kept saying he must have reasons, he must know what he's doing." "You were right that he had reasons," Harry said quietly. "You were wrong that those reasons made it okay. But so was I. I trusted him too." "I'll kill him," Ron said. It came out flat, factual, not like a threat, just like a statement of obvious future intention. "I swear to God, Harry, you won't. Because I need you for something better than Azkaban." Harry leaned forward across the table. "I need you both. This is going to be the fight of my life, not against Voldemort, not yet, but against the man who's been running my life since the day my parents died. I can't do it without you." "You have us," Hermione said immediately. "Obviously you have us. Always." Ron just nodded, jaw set. "Then, my family. The Order. Mum and Dad, they believe in him. They all believe in him. I know. And I'm not asking you to choose between me and your family. When the truth comes out, and it will, publicly, in about 3 days, your parents will have to make their own decisions." "But Ron." Harry caught his eye. "Your dad works at the ministry. Your mum is order to the bone. I need to know that whatever they decide, you're with me." "Don't be stupid," Ron said roughly. "Course I'm with you. You're my best mate. And what he did to you," his jaw worked. "That could have been any of us. If Mum and Dad had died in the war, if Dumbledore had decided the Weasley kids needed to be humble," he couldn't finish the thought. "There's something else," Harry said. He'd been debating whether to share this, but they needed to understand the full scope. "Dumbledore's been telling the Order that I've had a breakdown. That I'm being manipulated. He's going to try to have me declared incompetent before I can file, I'm sure of it." "On what grounds?" Hermione demanded, her legal mind already spinning. "Grief. Trauma. The influence of dark creatures," meaning the goblins. He can't claim I'm underage because the lordship emancipates me, but he can try to argue that I'm mentally unfit to manage my own affairs. That's despicable. It's what someone does when they're losing control. Andromeda warned me he'd try it. Andromeda Tonks. Hermione's eyebrows rose. You've been busy. She's family. And she knows how the pureblood political world works in a way I never could without her. Harry pulled out a sheaf of parchment. Here's where things stand. Ted Tonks is my solicitor, the filing happens Tuesday. Amelia Bones is aware and neutral favorable. Augusta Longbottom has pledged House Longbottom support. I have my 2 Wisengamot seats active and recognized. And, he hesitated. This was the part that would be hardest for them. I'm not going back to Hogwarts the way things are. Ron blinked. What? Dumbledore is the headmaster. While I'm a student at Hogwarts, he has authority over me within the school. He can restrict my movements, confiscate my belongings, assign detentions, control me in 100 small ways. I'm not putting myself back under his power. But your education, Hermione started. I'm not dropping out. I'm changing the terms. As Lord Potterblack, I have the legal right to attend Hogwarts, it's in the school charter, which was partly written by a Potter. But I also have the right to certain accommodations that ordinary students don't. Private quarters. Freedom from arbitrary punishment. The ability to come and go as my duties require. He smiled thinly. I'm going back. But I'm going back as a lord of 2 houses, not as a compliant student. He can't give me detention for missing curfew when I have Wisengamot sessions to attend. Hermione was staring at him with an expression Harry had never seen before, somewhere between awe and assessment. You've really thought this through. I've had 5 days with nothing to do but think and plan. What can we do? Ron asked. Specifically. Right now. Harry had hoped he'd ask. Hermione, I need a research brain. The blood wards at Privet Drive. Dumbledore claimed they required me to be miserable. Everything I've found says that's rubbish. Blood wards powered by sacrifice and love should be strengthened by positive emotion, not negative. But I need chapter and verse. Academic sources, legal precedent, anything that proves he lied to the Dursleys about the ward's requirements. I'll need library access. You'll have it. The Potter family has a private library at the Kensington flat. It's not Hogwarts, but it's 400 years of magical texts, and some of them are on subjects you won't find anywhere else. Hermione's eyes went very wide. 400, try not to vibrate out of your seat. Ron, your job is different. I need you to be my ear on the Weasley side. I'm not asking you to spy on your family. But I need to know how they're reacting, what Dumbledore's telling them, whether they're likely to oppose me or stay neutral when this goes public. I can do that. Mum's been whispering with Dad all week, something's got her nervous. Maybe she already suspects something's off. Maybe. One more thing, both of you. Harry looked between them. A clemency. You need shields. Dumbledore is a legilimens, and so is Snape. Until this is resolved, every time you're in a room with either of them, you're a vulnerability. Can you teach us? Hermione asked. I can start you off. I've been practicing, the rings help, actually. The family magic provides a kind of baseline shielding. He tapped the black ring. But real occlumency takes weeks to develop properly. In the meantime, don't meet Dumbledore's eyes. Either of you. If he asks to speak with you privately, refuse. Stay in public spaces, stay around witnesses. They talked for another hour, logistics, timelines, contingencies. By the time they left the cafe, the sun was going down over Kensington and Harry felt something he hadn't felt in days, hope. Not the desperate, fragile hope of someone clinging to what they had. The solid, grounded hope of someone who'd chosen their people well. Tuesday morning dawned grey and rainy. Harry dressed carefully, formal robes and Potter crimson and black silver, both rings polished, his hair still impossible but somehow looking deliberate rather than messy with the right cut. Andromeda had taken him to a wizarding barber who'd managed to make the Potter chaos look intentional. He met Ted outside the Wisengamot Civil Division offices at 9 sharp. Ted carried a leather case containing the formal filing, 50 pages of documented charges, certified financial records, and a request for a full hearing before the assembled Wisengamot. "Ready?" Ted asked. "Absolutely." They filed at 9:07 a.m. The clerk, a middle-aged witch with spectacles and an air of terminal boredom, read the first page of the filing, went white, read it again, and then excused herself to fetch her supervisor. The supervisor read it, went white, and excused herself to fetch the chief clerk. The chief clerk read it, did not go white, she was made of sterner stuff, and looked at Harry over the top of the document. "Lord Potter Black. You understand that this filing will trigger a mandatory hearing?" "I do." "And that the respondent in this action is the chief warlock of the Wisengamot, who will be required to recuse himself from presiding?" "I understand." "And that once filed, this becomes a matter of public record?" "That is my intention." She stamped the document. Filing accepted. Case number 7412. Hearing to be scheduled within 14 days per statute. The respondent will be served notice within 24 hours. She looked at him one more time, not with sympathy, exactly, but with something like recognition. "Good luck, Lord Potter Black." "Thank you." They walked out of the ministry into Diagon Alley, and Harry breathed the rain-sweet air. "It's done," Ted said quietly. "No taking it back now." "Good." The prophet broke the story the next day. Harry hadn't leaked it, he didn't need to. A filing against the chief warlock by the boy who lived was the kind of thing that sent shockwaves through the ministry's gossip network within hours. By evening, every reporter in Wizarding Britain was scrambling for details. The headline that greeted Harry over breakfast on Wednesday was enormous. Boy who lived files fraud charges against Dumbledore. Lord Potterblack alleges decades of financial mismanagement, theft from family vaults. The article was surprisingly even-handed, probably because the prophet knew Harry owned a stake in their parent company and was being careful. It laid out the basics of the filing without editorial commentary, quoted Ted Tonks's official statement, and noted that Dumbledore had declined to comment through his office at Hogwarts. The reaction was immediate and volcanic. Harry's Gringotts secured post box overflowed within hours, letters of support, letters of outrage, howlers, offers of alliance, threats. He ignored them all. The only communications that mattered came through his secured channels, Ted, Ragnarok, Tonks, Andromeda. And one unexpected one. At noon, a Hogwarts owl arrived at the Kensington flat, which shouldn't have been possible, since the flat was unplottable. But Hogwarts owls had always been special. Harry recognized the handwriting on the envelope immediately, precise, angular, utterly Scottish. "Mr. Potter, Lord Potter Black, I should say. Forgive an old teacher her habits. I have read this morning's prophet. I have also read the filing itself, which Albus was required to share with the Board of Governors as it involves his conduct in an official capacity. I need you to know two things. First, I was not aware of any of it. Not the payments, not the letters, not the vault access. If I had been, I would have stopped it or died trying. You were my student and you were a child in need of protection, and I failed you because I trusted a man I should have questioned. Second, I am requesting a meeting with you at your earliest convenience. Not on Dumbledore's behalf, on my own. There are things you should know about the board's response to your filing, and I would rather you heard them from me than from the prophet. Yours in absolute sincerity, Minerva McGonagall, Deputy Headmistress, Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Harry read the letter twice. Then he wrote back, Professor McGonagall, thank you for your letter. I believe you when you say you didn't know. Meet me at the Avalon Club, Mayfair, tomorrow at 2. Come alone. Harry McGonagall arrived at the Avalon Club precisely at 2, wearing her most severe tartan robes and an expression that suggested she'd been crying recently and was furious at herself for it. Harry rose as she approached his table. "Professor." "Harry." She sat, folded her hands on the table, and met his eyes directly. "Before anything else, I owe you an apology. Not just for this. For years of things. For every time you came to me with a concern and I told you to trust the headmaster. For every time I saw you arrive at school thinner than you'd left. For," her voice cracked, just slightly. She mastered it. "For the night your parents died, when I sat outside that house and told Albus that the Dursleys were the worst sort of muggles, and let him leave you there anyway." Harry had known this, the story of McGonagall watching Privet drive as a cat. But hearing it from her directly, hearing the self-recrimination in her voice, hit differently. "You didn't know about the money," he said. "Or the letters." "No. But I knew you were unhappy there. Every September, it was obvious. You were malnourished, Harry. Every single year. And I told myself Albus had it in hand. That there must be a reason." She pressed her lips together. "There is no reason good enough." "No," Harry agreed. "There isn't. But you're here now. That matters." She straightened slightly. "The Board of Governors met this morning. Emergency session. Lucius Malfoy tried to use your filing as grounds for immediate removal of the headmaster, I'll bet he did. And was voted down, narrowly. The board has decided to wait for the Wisengamot hearing before taking any action regarding Dumbledore's position at Hogwarts. However," she leaned forward, "they have placed certain restrictions on his authority, pending resolution. He cannot discipline students without board approval. He cannot access school funds without countersignature. And he cannot," a thin smile, "correspond with students' guardians regarding matters outside their Hogwarts education. That last one seems pointed. I may have suggested it." Harry allowed himself a small smile. "Thank you, Professor. There's more. The board also discussed your return to Hogwarts. Given your status as an emancipated lord, they've agreed that you're entitled to certain accommodations, private quarters, freedom from standard curfew restrictions, and the right to attend to outside business as needed. That's what I'd expected to request. Thank you for handling it before I had to. I am still your head of house, Harry. That means something to me, even if I haven't always shown it adequately." She paused, then added, "He's going to try to see you. You know that." "I know. He's already tried 3 times today. He went to the Leaky Cauldron, to Gringotts, and to the Ministry. No one would tell him where you are." "Good. He's not handling this well, Harry. I've known Albus for 40 years, and I've never seen him like this. He's not angry, he's frightened. Of losing control, yes, but also of losing you. In his own twisted way, he does care about you." Harry looked out the window of the club at the street below. Rain streaked the glass. "I know he cares about me. That's what makes it worse. If he were simply a villain, this would be easy. But he did all of this, the manipulation, the control, the theft, while genuinely believing it was for my own good. While caring." He turned back to McGonagall. "That's why I'm doing this publicly. Not to destroy him, but to make sure he can never do it to anyone else. Caring about someone doesn't give you the right to control their life." McGonagall nodded slowly. "You sound very grown up." "I had to grow up fast. Someone made sure of that. He couldn't avoid Dumbledore forever. Nor did he want to, the confrontation was necessary. But it would happen on Harry's terms, in Harry's space, with Harry's people present. The opportunity came 6 days after the filing, on a Sunday evening, when Harry returned to the Kensington flat from a training session. He'd been working with a retired Auror Tonks had recommended, sharpening his dueling skills, pushing his magic harder than Hogwarts had ever demanded, and found an old man sitting on the front steps. No. Not on the front steps. The flat was unplottable, Dumbledore couldn't see the building. He was sitting on the pavement outside the general area where the flat existed, looking up at the sky with an expression of profound patience. Harry stopped 30 feet away. His wand was in his hand before he'd made a conscious decision, the holster doing its job, responsive to threat. "You can't see the building," Harry said. Dumbledore turned. He looked old. Not the twinkling, ageless grandfather figure, genuinely old. Tired. His robes were slightly rumpled, his beard not quite as pristine as usual. "No," Dumbledore said quietly. "I cannot. But I know you're here, Harry. I've been sitting here for 3 hours, hoping you might walk past." He stood slowly, his joints protesting. "I would very much like to talk to you. We have nothing to say that won't be said at the hearing. We have a great deal to say that the hearing will never address." Dumbledore took a step forward. "Harry, please. I know you're angry." Harry let the word hang between them. "You think I'm angry? I think you have every right to be." "You're correct. I do." Harry didn't move. Didn't lower his wand. "But angry doesn't begin to cover it. You paid them to abuse me, Dumbledore. You instructed them. You stole from my family to fund your private war. You controlled every aspect of my life, where I lived, what I knew, who I could trust, for 15 years. And you did it all while smiling at me. While offering me sherbet lemons and telling me half-truths and sending me back to that house every summer knowing exactly what was happening there. The blood wards, don't." Harry's voice cracked like a whip. "Don't you dare invoke my mother's sacrifice to justify what you did. Blood wards powered by love don't require suffering. I have academics who will testify to that. You lied to the Dursleys about the ward's requirements because you wanted me broken. You wanted me malleable. You wanted a weapon that would point where you aimed it and die when you decided it was time." Dumbledore flinched. Actually flinched, a full-body reaction, as though Harry's words had physical force. "Harry, that is not, I never wanted you to die, prophecy boy. The one with the power the Dark Lord knows not. You told me yourself, neither can live while the other survives. And you've been preparing me for that my entire life. Not to win. To sacrifice. Every choice you made, keeping me ignorant, keeping me hungry, keeping me dependent, was designed to produce a boy who would walk willingly to his death when you told him to." The silence that followed was devastating. Because Dumbledore didn't deny it. He didn't explain. He didn't offer a twinkle-eyed alternative interpretation. He stood in the rain on a London pavement and looked at Harry with something that might have been shame. "You know about the Horcruxes," Dumbledore said finally, barely a whisper. "I know about the one in my scar," Harry said. "Ragnarok told me. The goblins can detect soul magic, it's part of their vault security protocols. And yes, before you ask, I've already taken steps. Goblin curse breakers have been working with me. It's being handled. Without me dying." Dumbledore stared. "That's, the soul fragment, the only way I knew, was death." "Yes. The only way you knew. Because you never bothered to ask the goblins. Because you never bothered to ask anyone. Because you decided, decades ago, that you were the smartest person in every room, and you stopped looking for alternatives that didn't fit your plan." Harry's grip on his wand didn't waver. "You had 15 years, Dumbledore. 15 years to find another way. Instead, you spent them preparing me to be a sacrifice. Well, I'm not dying for you. I'm not dying for anyone. I'm going to kill Voldemort, and I'm going to do it alive, and then I'm going to live the rest of my life free of people who think they know what's best for me." Dumbledore said nothing for a long time. The rain fell between them, and London moved around them, oblivious, ordinary, vast. I made mistakes, Dumbledore said at last. You committed crimes. Yes. The word came out like it cost him something vital. Yes, I suppose I did. I told myself it was necessary. That the war required you to steal gold from an orphan. The order had no funding, you could have asked. You could have told me, told Sirius, what was needed. We'd have given it willingly. The gold was never the point and you know it. The point was control. Dumbledore closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were wet. I cannot undo what I have done. No. You can't. But you can stop trying to undo what I'm doing. The hearing will happen. The truth will be public record. Your positions, your authority, those are for the Wizengamot to decide. But you will not interfere with my life again. Not my education, not my finances, not my choices. You will not send order members to watch me. You will not attempt to access my accounts. You will not contact my friends or allies to pressure them on your behalf. And if I comply with all of this, it's not a negotiation. I'm not offering you a deal. I'm informing you of how things are going to be. Harry lowered his wand for the first time, not because the threat was over, but because he wanted Dumbledore to see that he didn't need it. That his power wasn't in the stick of holly in his hand, but in himself. You taught me something valuable, Dumbledore. You taught me that the people who claim to love you can hurt you worst of all. I won't make the mistake of trusting blindly again. He turned and walked toward the invisible boundary of his flat's wards. At the edge, he paused. You said once that you cared more for my happiness than anything. At the hearing, I'll be asking you to prove it, by stepping back and letting me choose my own life. Whether you can actually do that. I suppose we'll find out. He stepped through the ward boundary and disappeared from Dumbledore's sight. Inside the flat, Harry leaned against the door and breathed. His hands were shaking, not with fear, but with the afterburn of adrenaline. He'd done it. He'd stood in front of Albus Dumbledore, the most powerful wizard of the age, and spoken the truth without flinching. And Dumbledore had crumbled. Not because Harry was stronger magically. Not because Harry had threatened him. But because, for the first time in probably 50 years, someone had held up a mirror and refused to let Dumbledore look away. Harry's mirror buzzed. He checked it, a new enchanted compact Tonks had given him for secure communication. Harry? Tonks's voice, tinny through the mirror. The Prophet's Evening Edition just dropped. You need to see this. Harry grabbed a copy from the stack the Gringotts hawk delivered. The headline hit him like a fist. Dumbledore responds to fraud allegations. Chief Warlock issues public statement. Everything I did was for the protection of the wizarding world. He read the statement quickly. It was masterful. Harry had to give the old man that. Dumbledore acknowledged, making difficult choices during a time of war, and prioritizing the greater good over individual concerns. He expressed profound regret for any pain caused to Lord Potterblack and stated that he welcomed the opportunity to explain his actions before the Wizengamot. It was an admission wrapped in justification, drizzled with just enough remorse to play sympathetic. He was spinning the narrative, positioning himself not as a thief, but as a wartime leader who'd made hard choices. Harry set the paper down. It was exactly what Andromeda had predicted. He picked up his quill and began drafting his counter-statement. No spin. No justification. Just facts. The payment amounts. The cupboard. The letter. The years of deliberate neglect. Let the public decide which story they believed, the grandfatherly leader making hard choices, or the orphan sleeping under the stairs in a house paid for with his own gold. Harry sent the statement to Ted for review, copied to the Prophet's editorial desk. Then he went to the Potter Library, a room he'd spent hours in already, devouring texts on family magic, ward theory, and wizarding law, and pulled down a book on Wizengamot procedure. The hearing was in 8 days. He had work to do. The training sessions with the retired Auror, a grizzled witch named Hestia Blackwood who'd spent 20 years in the field before losing a leg to a dark curse, were brutal and illuminating. Harry had always been good in a fight. Quick reflexes, strong instincts, raw power. But Blackwood pushed him beyond instinct into mastery. "You cast like someone who learned from books and desperation," she told him on their 4th session, circling him in the expanded basement of the Kensington flat, her prosthetic leg clicking on the stone floor. "Good enough to survive. Not good enough to dominate. You want to fight a war. You need to dominate. Show me." She did. For 3 hours each day, she drilled him, not just in spells, but in magical theory applied to combat. How to layer shields. How to chain spells without pause for breath. How to use environmental magic, transfiguring the battlefield, weaponizing everything around him. How to push raw power through a spell to overload standard defenses. "You've got the power for it," Blackwood said, after watching Harry blow through a conjured stone wall with a reductor curse that left a crater in the basement floor. "More than most Aurors twice your age. The Potter family magic is nothing to sniff at, and the Black family magic on top," she shook her head. "You're a bloody siege engine, Potter Black. You just need to learn to aim." Harry practiced until his magic ached, then practiced more. Not because he was afraid, he wasn't, not anymore, but because he refused to be unprepared. Voldemort was still out there. Death Eaters were still hunting. And now, without Dumbledore's shadow to shelter under, Harry needed to be his own shield. He wasn't hiding. He wasn't running. He was sharpening himself into something that didn't need to hide or run. On the 7th night, one day before the hearing, he sat in his library with Hermione and Ron, going over the final preparations. Ted had briefed them that afternoon on what to expect, the formal charges, the evidence presentation, Dumbledore's right of response. The Wisengamot members who'd be voting, 49 seats total, 25 needed for a majority finding. "We have 18 confirmed," Harry said, running down the list. "Longbottom, Bones, Abbott, Greengrass." Ron looked surprised. "They're neutral. Always have been." They were. Andromeda had a very productive lunch with Lady Greengrass last week. Apparently, Dumbledore blocked a trade agreement with the goblins 3 years ago that would have made the Greengrass fortune significantly larger. Self-interest is a perfectly valid motivator. "Slytherin thinking," Ron said, but not disapprovingly. "I'm Lord Black. I'd better learn to think like one." Harry tapped the list. 18 confirmed, 7 probable, 12 undecided, 12 expected to side with Dumbledore. "We need 25. The math works if even half the undecided break our way." "The public statement helped," Hermione said. "I've been monitoring the letters to the Prophet. Since your response ran, opinion has shifted significantly. People are angry, Harry. Not just at Dumbledore, at the system that let this happen. Parents are writing and asking if their children's magical guardianship arrangements are secure." "Good. That's exactly the nerve I wanted to hit. This isn't just about me, it's about whether anyone with power can do this to any child and get away with it." Ron was quiet for a moment, then said, "Mum cried. When your statement came out, the part about the cupboard. She cried for an hour. Dad had to take her to bed." He swallowed. "She's not going to fight you, Harry. Neither is Dad. They're furious at Dumbledore. Mum keeps saying she should have noticed. Should have pushed harder to get you out of there permanently." "She tried," Harry said. "Every summer, she tried to get me to the Burrow earlier. That counts for something. She wants to write to you. Is that, tell her she can." Harry's voice caught unexpectedly. "I'd like to hear from her." They worked until midnight, then Ron and Hermione left through the flue, connected to the network under the name, Number 7, Chelsea, another layer of misdirection. Harry stood alone in the flat and looked around at the walls lined with books, the comfortable furniture, the kitchen where he cooked his own meals. His space. His home. Chosen, not assigned. Tomorrow, he would stand before the Wisengamot and demand justice. Not revenge, justice. The truth, spoken into record, undeniable and permanent. He went to bed. He slept well. And in the morning, he dressed for war. Chapter 4, Blood and Gold. The Wisengamot chamber was older than Hogwarts. Harry felt it the moment he stepped through the bronze doors, magic layered so deep it had become geological, pressed into the stone walls like fossils. The circular room descended in tiers toward a central floor, every seat carved from ancient oak and backed with the coat of arms of the house it belonged to. Enchanted torches burned silver-white along the walls, casting no shadows. Harry walked in wearing Potter crimson trimmed with black silver, both rings visible, his head up. Ted Tonks flanked his right side. Andromeda walked on his left, not as his solicitor, but as a member of House Black, there by right. Behind them, Tonks in her aura robes, present in an official capacity as security. The gallery was packed. Every seat taken, people standing in the aisles. Harry spotted Rita Skeeter's acid green quill already scratching frantically in midair. He spotted Hermione and Ron in the public gallery, Hermione pale with tension, Ron's jaw set like iron. The Weasley parents sat 3 rows behind them. Molly's eyes were red-rimmed but steady. Arthur's face was grim. Harry took his seat. Not in the public petitioner's chair, in his own seat. The Potter seat, to be precise, which hadn't been occupied in 15 years. The oak was warm under his hands. The family crest behind him, a griffin rampant over crossed wands, seemed to glow as the seat recognized its lord. The black seat sat empty beside it. He could only occupy one at a time, but its presence made a statement. Across the chamber, the respondent's chair was also empty. Dumbledore hadn't arrived yet. The Chief Warlock's elevated seat, normally Dumbledore's, was occupied today by Tiberius Ogden, the most senior member, who'd been called to preside in Dumbledore's absence. "All rise," called the court clerk. The Wisengamot convenes in extraordinary session. Case number 7412, Lord Harry James Potter Black, petitioner, versus Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore, respondent. Presiding, Elder Tiberius Ogden. All interested parties, be recognized. Harry stood. Lord Potter Black, petitioner, present. Ted stood. Edward Tonks, solicitor for the petitioner, present. A murmur from the far doors. Harry didn't turn. He didn't need to, he could feel the magic shift in the room as Dumbledore entered. The old wizard's presence was like weather changing, a barometric pressure drop that made the torches flicker. Albus Dumbledore, respondent, present. His voice was calm. Measured. The voice of a man who'd been addressing this chamber for decades. Accompanied by counsel, Elphias Doge, solicitor. Now Harry looked. Dumbledore walked to the respondent's chair in robes of deep blue, somber for him, deliberately understated. No hat. No twinkle. He looked like what he wanted to look like, a serious man facing serious accusations with dignity. Elphias Doge shuffled beside him, ancient and loyal, clutching a sheaf of parchment. Dumbledore's eyes found Harry across the chamber. Harry met them without hesitation, without a clemency walls even, just a flat, honest stare that said, "I see you. I know what you are. Do your worst." Something moved in Dumbledore's expression. Then it was gone. "Be seated," Ogden said. "Lord Potter Black. You have filed a civil action alleging financial malfeasance, breach of fiduciary duty, and abuse of magical guardianship against the respondent. You may present your case. You have 1 hour." Ted stood and began. He was brilliant. Harry had seen him prepare, had heard the arguments rehearsed in the Kensington flat, but hearing them delivered in the chamber, with the weight of law and history behind them, was something else entirely. Ted didn't grandstand. He didn't appeal to emotion. He laid out facts like bricks, building a wall of evidence so solid that no amount of charm or reputation could knock it down. The Gringotts records, projected in the air by goblin magic, every transaction, every date, every amount. The sealed Wisengamot orders, now unsealed by judicial authority, showing how Dumbledore had obtained access to the Black Vault through a closed session with no public oversight. The letter to the Dursleys, enlarged so every word was visible to the entire chamber. When Ted read the letter aloud, "I trust you will continue to keep Harry humble and grounded," the chamber went absolutely silent. Not a whisper. Not a rustle. Just the sound of truth landing like a hammer blow. The petitioner was placed in a home where he was physically and emotionally abused, Ted said, his voice level and clear. He was denied adequate food, clothing, and shelter despite his guardians receiving monthly payments, from his own family vault, that exceeded the average wizarding household income. He was told his parents died in a car crash. He slept in a cupboard under a staircase until the age of 11. And the respondent not only knew of these conditions, he facilitated them. He instructed the Dursleys, in his own handwriting, to maintain these conditions. He claimed, falsely, as we will demonstrate, that the blood wards protecting the petitioner required his unhappiness. Ted called his first witness, Harry himself. Harry stood and walked to the testimony chair, a plain wooden seat at the center of the floor, surrounded on all sides by the tiered Wisengamot seats. He felt every eye in the room on him and let them look. He had nothing to hide. "Lord Potterblack," Ted said. "Please describe your living conditions at number 4 Privet Drive." Harry spoke clearly, without self-pity. "The cupboard. The locks on the door. The cat flap for food. The bars on the window. Dudley's cast-offs. The hunger, not starvation, but the constant low ache of not quite enough. Vernon's fists when Harry's accidental magic flared. Petunia's cold, deliberate cruelty dressed up as propriety. He didn't embellish. He didn't need to. The facts were damning enough. And during this time, Ted asked, "Were you aware that your family possessed significant financial resources?" "No. I learned about the Potter Vault, my trust vault, at age 11, when Hagrid took me to Gringotts for the first time. I was never told about the main Potter Vault, the Black Vault, the properties, the investments, or the Wisengamot seats. I was told my parents left me a small inheritance. I was deliberately kept ignorant of my actual position." "And who controlled the information you received?" "Albus Dumbledore. As my magical guardian, he controlled what I was told about my heritage, my finances, and my legal rights. He also controlled my physical placement. The decision to send me to the Dursleys was his alone, made without consultation or oversight." "Thank you, Lord Potterblack." Harry returned to his seat. Dumbledore hadn't moved during the testimony, hadn't reacted visibly. But his hands, folded in his lap, were white-knuckled. Ted's second witness was Ragnarok himself. The goblin entered the chamber to a ripple of surprise. Goblins rarely appeared before the Wisengamot, and when they did, it was momentous. Ragnarok wore formal Gringotts armor, black and silver, covered in runes of truth and binding. He carried a sealed scroll that radiated magic so old it made the air taste of iron. "Director Ragnarok," Ted said. "You have conducted a full audit of the Potter and Black family vaults at Lord Potterblack's request. What were your findings?" Ragnarok's voice was like gravel sliding over stone. "The Potter family vault, Vault 712, was accessed 214 times between November 1981 and June 1996 by Albus Dumbledore, using magical guardian authorization. Total withdrawals during this period, 347,000 galleons. The stated purpose of these withdrawals varied: child maintenance, security expenses, educational preparedness. In reality, 90,000 galleons went to the Dursley household. 112,000 went to an organization calling itself the Order of the Phoenix. The remainder was distributed across 17 different accounts, several of which trace back to Wisengamot members. The last sentence landed like a bomb. 17 accounts. Wizengamot members. The implications were staggering. Dumbledore hadn't just funded his private army with stolen gold. He'd been buying votes. The chamber erupted. Ogden hammered his gavel for 30 seconds before order was restored. Harry noticed several Wizengamot members shifting uncomfortably in their seats, recipients of that gold, perhaps, who were only now realizing how it had been obtained. The Black family vault, Ragnarok continued, unmoved by the chaos, was similarly accessed. 212,000 galleons withdrawn over 15 years. The authorization was obtained through a sealed Wizengamot order, an order which, I note, was approved by a subset of members who subsequently received payments from the Black Vault. He let that sit. Under Goblin law, this constitutes fraud, theft, and conspiracy. Under Wizarding law, I am told, the terminology may differ. The substance does not. Ted's third witness was Professor Bathsheba Babbling, the Hogwarts Ancient Runes professor, called as an expert on ward theory. Professor Babbling, Ted said, in your expert opinion, do blood wards powered by sacrificial love require the protected individual to be unhappy or mistreated in order to function? Absolutely not. Babbling was a small, precise woman who spoke with the authority of 30 years academic study. Blood wards of the type described in this case, wards anchored by a mother's willing sacrifice, are powered by the love component of the blood connection. They are strengthened by positive emotional environments, not negative ones. The claim that such wards require suffering is not merely wrong, it is the opposite of established ward theory. Any competent wardmaster would know this. And Albus Dumbledore? Would he, in your professional opinion, have known this? Albus Dumbledore wrote 3 of the seminal papers on blood magic theory in the 1960s. He absolutely knew. There is no possibility of honest error on this point. The silence after that testimony was different from the earlier silences. This one was cold. This one had teeth. Ted rested his case at 47 minutes. Under an hour. Clean, devastating, irrefutable. Ogden turned to Dumbledore's chair. The respondent may now present his defense. You have 1 hour, Mr. Dumbledore. Dumbledore stood. He didn't go to the testimony chair, he remained standing at his respondent's seat, turning slowly to address the full chamber. His voice, when he spoke, was quiet. Not the confident quietness of power, the reluctant quietness of a man who knew he'd lost and was choosing his words for history. Everything I did, he said, I did because I believed it was necessary. He paused. Let the words settle. In November of 1981, I stood in the ruins of the Potter home in Godric's Hollow and held a 15-month-old boy who had just survived the killing curse. In that moment, I saw 2 things, a child who needed protection, and a prophecy that would one day require that child to face the darkest wizard of our age. I was terrified. Another pause. Harry watched him, unmoved. I placed Harry with the Dursleys because the blood wards were real. They did protect him, I stand by that. The question of whether his emotional state affected their efficacy is, he hesitated. A matter on which I may have been, incorrect. I believed, at the time, that a degree of unhappiness, a desire to leave that household, would anchor the wards more securely, as it would strengthen his eventual attachment to the wizarding world. I acknowledged that this belief was not supported by established theory. I acknowledged that I chose to believe it because it served my broader strategic objectives. Murmurs in the chamber. Harry noted that Dumbledore wasn't denying anything. He was admitting, but wrapping every admission in context, in nuance, in the language of difficult choices and wartime necessity. The financial decisions I made were wrong. I know that now. I should have established proper oversight. I should have appointed an independent trustee. I should have, at minimum, ensured that the funds directed to the Dursleys were actually being used for Harry's welfare. His voice dropped. I did not. I was focused on the larger war. I was managing dozens of operations, hundreds of lives, and I allowed Harry's day-to-day welfare to become, unconscionably, a secondary concern. Regarding the payments to Wisengamot members, here Doge stood and whispered urgently in Dumbledore's ear. Dumbledore waved him off. No, Elphias. I will not deny what is true. Yes, I directed funds from the Black Vault to certain Wisengamot members. Not as bribes. As support. Many of them had lost livelihoods, homes, family members in the First War. They needed help, and the Black Vault had resources that were, as far as I knew, unclaimed. This was wrong. It was not my money to give, regardless of how worthy the recipients. He turned to face Harry directly. Harry. I cannot ask your forgiveness, I have not earned it. I can only tell you this, I loved you. In my way, flawed, controlling, afraid, I loved you. And I am sorry. The chamber was silent. Dumbledore sat down. Ogden cleared his throat. The Wisengamot will now deliberate. Members, cast your votes. The question before you, does the respondent bear civil liability for financial malfeasance and breach of fiduciary duty regarding the estates of House Potter and House Black? The voting was done by wand, each member raising theirs and casting a colored light. Gold for guilty. Blue for not guilty. Silver for abstention. Harry counted the lights as they rose. Gold, 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 blue, gold, silver, gold, gold, blue, gold. When the last vote was cast, Ogden tallied with a sweep of his wand. 34 votes for liability. 9 against. 6 abstentions. The Wisengamot finds the respondent civilly liable for financial malfeasance and breach of fiduciary duty. 34. They'd needed 25. They'd gotten 34. It wasn't just a win. It was a landslide. The Wisengamot further orders, Ogden continued, reading from the statute, full financial restitution to the injured party, to be assessed by an independent auditor appointed by this body. The respondent's magical guardianship over any minor is permanently revoked. The respondent is ordered to surrender any and all documents, properties, or artifacts belonging to House Potter or House Black currently in his possession. Ogden paused, adjusting his spectacles. Given the revelation of payments to sitting Wisengamot members from the accounts in question, this body orders an independent investigation into potential conflicts of interest, with all implicated members suspended from voting pending that investigation. More eruption. More gavel. Harry sat very still and let it wash over him. It was done. The truth was on record. The judgment was rendered. And Dumbledore, Harry looked across the chamber. Dumbledore sat with his eyes closed, his hands still folded, his face carved with lines that seemed deeper than they'd been an hour ago. Doge was patting his arm ineffectually. Around them, the chamber buzzed with the chaos of a political earthquake. Then Dumbledore opened his eyes, looked at Harry, and nodded. A small, slow nod. Not defeat, acknowledgement. Recognition that the game had changed, that the boy he'd raised as a pawn had become a king. Harry nodded back. Just once. Then he stood, gathered his people, and walked out of the Wisengamot chamber into the atrium of the Ministry of Magic, where 50 reporters were waiting with cameras and quick quotes, quills and questions shouted over each other in a wall of noise. Harry stopped at the top of the stairs. The cameras flashed. Ted leaned in. You don't have to make a statement. We can, I want to. Harry stepped forward, and the reporters fell quiet with an immediacy that spoke to the gravity of the moment. Today, the Wisengamot held Albus Dumbledore accountable for 15 years of financial misconduct and abuse of guardianship over my estates. I'm grateful for the process and the verdict. He paused. But I want to be clear about something. This was never about vengeance. I don't hate Professor Dumbledore. I believe he acted out of a genuine, if deeply misguided, belief that he was protecting me and our world. But believing your intentions are good doesn't make your actions right. And no one, no matter how powerful, how respected, how well-intentioned, should be able to control a child's life without oversight or accountability. He looked directly into the nearest camera. I'm 16 years old. I have a war to fight, a war I didn't choose, against an enemy who murdered my parents. I intend to fight that war on my own terms, with my own allies, using my own resources. Not as anyone's weapon. Not as anyone's pawn. As myself. A beat. That's all. He walked through the reporters without another word, flanked by Ted and Andromeda, Tonks clearing a path with her aura badge and a look that dared anyone to get in the way. They made it to the flue bank and vanished in a swirl of green flame. Back at the Kensington flat, Harry collapsed onto the sofa and allowed himself exactly 30 seconds of feeling the magnitude of what he'd done. The Wizengamot. Dumbledore. 34 votes. The press statement. All of it, real, permanent, irreversible. Then Hermione was there, having come through the flue moments behind him, and she threw her arms around him without a word. Ron followed, clapping a hand on Harry's shoulder and squeezing hard. You did it, mate, Ron said. His voice was rough. You actually bloody did it. We did it, Harry said into Hermione's hair. All of us. Andromeda was already pouring fire whiskey, a bottle from the Black collection that was older than all of them combined. She pressed glasses into everyone's hands, including a slightly scandalized Hermione. To the Lord Potterblack, Andromeda said, raising her glass. Who just toppled a titan without throwing a single curse. They drank. The evening should have been celebration. It was, partly. There was food and drink and the release of weeks of tension. Ted and his wife raised their glasses. Tonks turned her hair a dozen different colors, each one more ridiculous than the last. Ron ate 3 plates of whatever Andromeda conjured from the kitchen and declared her a better cook than his mum, then immediately went red and begged no one to tell Molly. But underneath the celebration, Harry was already thinking ahead. The hearing was won. The truth was public. Dumbledore's authority was shattered. But Voldemort was still out there, and now, with the light side fractured, the timing couldn't be worse. Or could it? Harry turned the thought over as he watched his friends laugh. Voldemort expected the wizarding world united behind Dumbledore, expected that any attack would be met with Dumbledore's order, Dumbledore's strategies, Dumbledore's responses. But that world was gone now. The game had changed entirely. Maybe that was an advantage. Voldemort's intelligence was built on the old paradigm. He didn't know Harry. Didn't understand what Harry had become. As far as Voldemort knew, Harry was still a scared teenager hiding behind Dumbledore's robes. Surprise was a weapon. The deadliest weapon, sometimes. Harry. Hermione had settled beside him on the sofa, her fire whiskey barely touched. You're planning something. I can see it. Always. Tell me, what do we know about Voldemort's current operations? She blinked at the shift but adapted instantly. Based on what Tonks has shared from Order intelligence, which we should probably verify independently, he's been recruiting heavily. Dementors have left Azkaban. Werewolf packs are being courted. And there are rumors about giants again. And his inner circle? Still the same core Death Eaters. Malfoy, Lestrange, Dolohov, Rookwood, the ones who broke out of Azkaban plus those who were never caught. They've been quiet since the Ministry battle. Regrouping. Harry nodded. He'll move soon. The political chaos, he'll see it as an opportunity. Dumbledore weakened, the Ministry distracted, the public divided. If I were him, I'd strike within a week. What do we do? We prepare. The Order's compromised, half its members are in shock, the other half are wondering if they should even exist anymore. The Ministry's Aura force is solid but underfunded and poorly led. He looked at Tonks. What's the Aura Department's readiness status? Tonks stopped mid-bite. Honestly? About 60%. Scrimgeour's been pushing for more recruitment but the budget isn't there. We've got maybe 40 combat-ready Aurors for all of Britain. What would it cost to fund a proper expansion? Tonks stared at him. Harry, you can't just, how much? She calculated quickly. Training, equipment, salaries for an additional 20 Aurors, maybe 50,000 galleons over 6 months. Done. I'll contact Bones tomorrow. An anonymous donation from House Potter, no, not anonymous. An open donation, with the explicit condition that the funds go to frontline defense against Voldemort's forces. You're going to fund the war effort yourself? Ron said. Dumbledore did it for 15 years with my money. At least I'm doing it with my own permission. Harry finished his fire whiskey. But that's the defensive piece. I want to be proactive. Hermione, I need you to research Horcruxes. The room went quiet. Hermione's face paled. Horcruxes. Voldemort made them. More than one. That's why he survived in 81, his soul is anchored to objects hidden around Britain. Dumbledore's been tracking them, apparently, but he's been doing it alone and in secret. I need us to do it better. Faster. How do you know about? Dumbledore told me some. The goblins confirmed the rest, they can detect soul magic, remember? The fragment in my scar is being handled. But there are others. A ring, already destroyed, Dumbledore did that last year. A locket. A cup. Something of Ravenclaw's, possibly. And the snake. Harry, this is incredibly dangerous magic, I know. That's why I need the best researcher I've ever met working on how to find and destroy them. He met her eyes. Can you do it? Hermione's chin came up. Obviously I can do it. I'll need access to restricted materials. The Potter and Black libraries have texts on soul magic that the Hogwarts restricted section would dream about. And Ragnarok has offered goblin-published research as well. Goblins have studied Horcruxes for centuries, they consider them a vault security threat. Right. She was already mentally organizing, Harry could tell. I'll start tonight. Ron, I need something different from you. Name it. Strategy. Not research, tactical planning. If we can identify where the Horcruxes are, we need extraction plans for each one. You're the best strategic mind I know, Harry, come on, 3rd year, you beat McGonagall's chess set at age 11. 5th year, you coordinated the DA's movements in the Department of Mysteries under fire. You see patterns and plans that other people miss. I need that. Wargame the scenarios, different locations, different defenses, different team compositions. Plan for everything. Ron was staring at him with an expression Harry couldn't quite read. Then he straightened, and something settled in his shoulders, like he'd been handed something he'd been waiting for without knowing it. Yeah, Ron said. Okay. I can do that. Voldemort struck 3 days later. Not a massive assault, he wasn't ready for that yet. But a targeted strike designed to exploit exactly what Harry had predicted, the chaos and division following the hearing. Diagon Alley. A Saturday afternoon. Peak shopping hours. Harry was in Gringotts when the first explosion hit. The building shook. Dust filtered from the ceiling. Goblins moved with practiced efficiency, weapons appeared from nowhere, shields went up, the massive bronze doors sealed themselves with a resonant clang. Harry was on his feet before the shaking stopped. He could feel the attack through the Potter ring, a thrumming awareness of dark magic being used in close proximity, like a tooth aching before a storm. Death Eaters, Ragnarok confirmed, appearing beside him with a short sword in each hand. Approximately 20. They breached the alley's ward boundary 30 seconds ago. They are targeting civilians. Open the doors. Ragnarok looked at him. Lord Potter Black. Gringotts is sovereign territory. We are not required, I'm not asking Gringotts to fight. I'm asking you to let me out. A beat. Then Ragnarok barked an order in gobbledygook, and the bronze doors cracked open just wide enough for a person to slip through. Harry hit the alley at a sprint. The scene was chaos. Shops burning. People running, screaming, trampling each other in their desperation to get to the flow points or apparition zones. Black-robed figures striding through the smoke, casting curses with the lazy cruelty of people who enjoyed their work. Killing curses lighting up the smoky air in streaks of green. Harry didn't slow down. Didn't shout a warning. Didn't announce himself. He raised his wand and sent a reductor curse into the ground at the nearest Death Eater's feet with enough power to crack cobblestones. The explosion sent the masked figure pinwheeling into a shop front, out cold before they hit the ground. The next one turned toward the noise and Harry hit them with a stunner so overpowered it left a visible red streak in the air, like a tracer round. The Death Eater's shield shattered and they dropped like a puppet with cut strings. 2 down in 3 seconds. The other Death Eaters were turning now, registering the threat. Harry saw masks whip toward him, saw the moment of recognition as they registered who he was. Potter. Evening, Harry said, and transfigured the cobblestones under 3 of them into a pit. They fell with satisfying screams. He sealed the pit with a conjured iron grate before they could climb out and moved on without breaking stride. A killing curse sizzled past his left ear. Harry didn't flinch, he tracked the trajectory back to its source, a tall Death Eater near Flourish and Blots, and responded with a chain of 3 spells in under a second. Shield Breaker, Body Bind, Banishing Charm. The Death Eater flew backward into the bookshop's display window and didn't get up. Blackwood's training sang in his blood. He wasn't thinking, he was flowing. Each spell connected to the next in a continuous stream of combat magic that left no gaps, no pauses for the enemy to exploit. He moved through the alley like a force of nature, taking down Death Eaters with a precision and power that made bystanders stop fleeing to stare. A cluster of 5 Death Eaters had cornered a group of civilians near Fortescue's. Harry assessed the situation in a heartbeat: hostages, multiple wands, tight space. Standard approach would be risky, could get innocents killed. Non-standard approach, then. He slammed his magic into the ground, raw, unstructured power channeled through his will rather than his wand. The stones of the alley rippled outward from him in a concentric wave. The Death Eaters staggered, thrown off balance. In the half-second of confusion, Harry snapped off 5 stunners so fast they sounded like one continuous incantation. 5 bodies dropped. The civilians stared at him. A small girl, maybe 7, was clutching her mother's leg and looking at Harry like he was a storybook hero come to life. "Get to Gringotts," Harry told them. "The goblins will let you in. Go now." They went. Harry turned back to the battle. More Death Eaters coming, reinforcements from the far end of the alley, near Nocturne. Among them, taller figures. Inner circle. He recognized Bellatrix Lestrange by the way she moved, that manic, dancing gait, wand already casting before she'd fully arrived. She was laughing. "Baby Potter," she shrieked, sending a purple curse streaming toward him. "Come to play. Come to die like you're." Harry caught her curse on a shield that didn't even flicker and sent back a response that blew a 6-foot crater in the ground where she'd been standing. She dodged, barely, her laughter cutting off as she registered the power behind the spell. "You killed Sirius," Harry said. Not shouting. Not emotional. Just fact. "I owe you for that." "Ooh, the puppy has teeth," he attacked. Not with anger, with precision. A barrage of combat magic so dense and varied that Bellatrix was forced entirely onto defense, her shields cracking under impacts that would have flattened lesser wizards. She was good, brilliant, even, her madness lending her a wild unpredictability that made her dangerous. But Harry was better. Stronger. Faster. And utterly unafraid. He hammered through her 3rd shield with a bludgeoning hex that sent her stumbling, followed it with a cutting curse that opened a gash across her wand arm, and finished with a full-power stunner that she only partially deflected. It caught her shoulder, spinning her, and before she could recover, Harry hit her with an incarcerus that wrapped her in conjured chains from throat to ankle. She hit the ground hard. The chains tightened as she struggled, and Harry felt the black ring pulse on his finger, the family magic recognizing a wayward daughter, exerting its authority. "Stay down," Harry told her, and turned away. She screamed obscenities at his back. He didn't listen. 3 more Death Eaters fell to him in rapid succession, 2 to stunners, 1 to an environmental transfiguration that turned the pavement under their feet into quicksand. The remaining attackers were falling back now, operating away in 1s and 2s as they realized the raid had gone catastrophically wrong. The last one standing was Antonin Dolohov, the man who'd cursed Hermione in the Department of Mysteries. He faced Harry across the rubble-strewn alley with his wand raised and murder in his eyes. "You'll die for this, Potter." The Dark Lord isn't here," Harry said. "You are. And you're alone." Dolohov snarled and fired a curse, the same purple flame that had nearly killed Hermione. Harry sidestepped it casually, like moving aside for a passing pedestrian, and responded with 3 spells in a heartbeat. The first shattered Dolohov's shield. The second knocked his wand from a suddenly nerveless hand. The third, a stunner with enough force to drop a troll, put him on the ground and kept him there. Silence fell over Diagon Alley. Smoke curled from damaged shopfronts. Glass glittered on the cobblestones. And Harry stood in the middle of it all, wand still raised, breathing hard, surrounded by the unconscious or bound bodies of 15 Death Eaters. Then, horrors. A dozen of them operating in, led by Kingsley Shacklebolt, wands drawn and ready for a fight that was already over. Kingsley surveyed the scene. His eyebrows rose approximately half an inch, for Kingsley, the equivalent of jaw-dropping shock. "Potter," he said. "Shacklebolt," Harry returned. "You're late." Response time was, Kingsley stopped. Looked around again. Counted bodies. "You did this alone." "They were hurting people." "I was here." Harry holstered his wand. "Bellatrix Lestrange is bound and secured near Fortescue's. I'd suggest magic suppressing cuffs, the chains won't hold her forever. Dolohov is there. The rest are scattered up the alley. I used non-lethal force on all of them." Kingsley stared at him for a long moment. Then he turned to his aurors and began giving rapid orders: secure the prisoners, establish a perimeter, call in medical teams. Tonks appeared at Harry's elbow. She'd been part of the response team, and her face was flushed with exertion and something that looked a lot like fierce pride. 15 Death Eaters, she said under her breath. Including Bellatrix Bloody Lestrange. Solo. In about 4 minutes. 3.5. Harry. She grabbed his arm, turned him to face her. Her eyes were blazing. "Do you understand what you just did? This is going to be in every paper tomorrow. Every wizarding paper in the world. The boy who lived just single-handedly stopped a Death Eater raid and captured Bellatrix Lestrange." "Good," Harry said. "I want Voldemort to hear about it. I want him to know that his little intimidation tactic failed, and that I'm not the scared kid he remembers." "You're mental," Tonks said, but she was grinning. "Brilliant, terrifying, and absolutely mental." People were emerging from the shops now, the civilians who'd been hiding, the shopkeepers who'd barricaded their doors. They were looking at Harry. Some were crying. Some were cheering. The small girl from earlier broke away from her mother and ran to Harry, throwing her arms around his legs. "Thank you," she said, her voice muffled against his robes. Harry knelt and put a gentle hand on her head. "You're safe now. Go back to your mum, yeah." She nodded, gave him one more squeeze, and ran back. Her mother mouthed thank you over her daughter's head, tears streaming. Harry straightened, turned, and walked toward Gringotts. The crowd parted for him. Behind him, the aurors were securing prisoners and beginning repairs. In front of him, the bronze doors of the bank opened wide, wider than they'd opened for anyone Harry had seen enter, and Ragnarok stood on the threshold with his arms crossed and that thin, fierce smile on his face. "Well fought, Lord Potterblack. Thank you for opening the doors. We protect our clients' interests. It seems our clients can also protect ours." Ragnarok stepped aside. "Come. I have information regarding the items you seek." The Prophet's evening edition was historic. The headline took up the entire front page: "Lord Potterblack defeats 15 Death Eaters in Diagon Alley Raid, Bellatrix Lestrange captured, not anyone's pawn," declares young Lord. The story ran alongside the still settling dust of the Wisengamot hearing. The juxtaposition was devastating for Dumbledore's remaining defenders. One story showed a boy who'd been exploited and neglected by his guardian. The other showed a young man powerful enough to protect an entire shopping district single-handedly. The implicit question was unavoidable: if Harry was this capable, why had Dumbledore kept him powerless and ignorant for 15 years? Letters flooded the Prophet. Howlers flooded the ministry. Public opinion, already tilting toward Harry after the hearing, crashed decisively in his direction. Witches and wizards who'd been on the fence, who'd wanted to give Dumbledore the benefit of the doubt, couldn't reconcile greater good with the reality of what Harry clearly was: not a fragile child who needed managing, but a force that Dumbledore had deliberately suppressed. Harry read the coverage in Ragnarok's office with a butterbeer in hand and the beginnings of a strategic map spread across the desk. The information Ragnarok had promised, intelligence about one of the Horcruxes, was better than Harry had hoped. "The locket," Ragnarok said, tapping a point on the map. "Your godfather's house. Number 12, Grimmauld Place. Our curse detectors identified a soul-tainted object during a routine security sweep of black properties conducted as part of your inheritance review. It was in a display cabinet on the second floor." Grimmauld Place. Harry exhaled. The Order's been using that as headquarters for over a year. They've been living with a Horcrux. Ironic, given that Dumbledore has spent this time supposedly hunting such objects. This one was under his nose the entire time. "Can you retrieve it? It is black property in a black residence. You are Lord Black. The house answers to you. If you order it, I order it. Retrieve the locket and bring it here for destruction. Your curse breakers can handle it. We have destroyed soul containers before. The goblin method is different from the wizarding one, no basilisk venom or fiend fire required. We use runic disintegration. Slower, but safer and entirely reliable. Do it." Harry marked the locket off his mental list. Ring, destroyed. Locket, located. Cup, diadem, snake, still to find. And the fragment in his scar, being slowly extracted through weekly sessions with goblin healers that left him drained but noticeably lighter each time. He was going to win this war. Not by dying. Not by sacrificing himself on Dumbledore's altar of the greater good. By being smarter, faster, and more powerful than the enemies who thought they owned his fate. His mirror buzzed. Hermione's face appeared, flushed with excitement. "Harry. I found something, the cup, Hufflepuff's cup. There's a reference in the Black family records to a golden cup of great antiquity, entrusted to the Lestrange vault by the Dark Lord himself. It's in Gringotts, Harry. It's been in Gringotts this entire time." Harry looked at Ragnarok. The goblin was already nodding. "The Lestrange vault. We were aware an object of dark provenance resided there. Under normal circumstances, we cannot remove an item from a client's vault without authorization. However, his smile showed every pointed tooth. Bellatrix Lestrange is now in ministry custody. Her vault access is suspended pending criminal proceedings. And if a soul container is detected within Gringotts, our security protocols require its removal and destruction, as it poses a threat to the bank's structural integrity." "How convenient," Harry said. "Gringotts takes security very seriously." Harry grinned, a real grin, fierce and alive. 2 Horcruxes located in one day. The ring already gone. The scar fragment being extracted. That left only two, the diadem and the snake. He turned back to Hermione's mirror. Brilliant work. Keep digging, I need you to find anything connected to Ravenclaw. The diadem. Where would Voldemort have hidden something connected to Ravenclaw? Hermione's brow furrowed. Somewhere connected to learning. Knowledge. A library, a school, they looked at each other. Hogwarts, they said simultaneously. Of course. Where else? Voldemort had asked to teach there. Had been rejected. Had hidden a piece of his soul in the one place he'd felt was truly home, just as Harry had. I'm going back to Hogwarts, Harry said. Sooner than planned. He could feel the war shifting beneath him like tectonic plates. The pieces were moving into position, his pieces, this time, on a board he was building himself. No puppet master. No grand plan that required his suffering or his death. Just Harry, his friends, his allies, and the truth. Voldemort's days were numbered. He just didn't know it yet. That night, alone in the Kensington flat, Harry sat by the window and watched London breathe. Lights moved below him, cars, buses, people living their ordinary lives. They didn't know about the war being fought in the shadows alongside them. They didn't know that a 16-year-old boy was dismantling a Dark Lord piece by piece while simultaneously holding the wizarding world's most powerful institutions accountable. They didn't need to know. That was the point. Harry fought so that people, magical and muggle, could live without knowing the dangers that had been kept from them. But he was done being the one kept in the dark. Done being the one information was hidden from, power was withheld from, choices were made for. He'd torn down the walls around his life and stepped into the full weight of who he was, and it turned out that who he was enough. More than enough. He went to bed with a clear mind and a full heart, and tomorrow, he'd go find a Horcrux in a castle. Chapter 5, The heir of two houses. Hogwarts appeared through the morning mist like a dream refusing to dissolve. Harry stood at the gates, wrought iron twisted into shapes that moved when you weren't looking directly at them, and felt the castle's magic reach for him. Not like the wards at Privet Drive, which had been a cage disguised as protection. This was recognition. Welcome. The castle knew him, and it was glad. He pressed his palm against the gate and pushed. It swung open without resistance, no passwords, no permissions needed. Lord of two founding families' allied houses, holder of a Hogwarts legacy that predated the current headmaster by centuries. The castle's magic deferred to him as naturally as breathing. Hermione walked beside him, her expanded bag stuffed with research notes and detection equipment she'd adapted from Goblin designs. Ron flanked his other side, wand out, eyes moving, scanning the grounds with the tactical awareness that Harry had always known was there, just waiting to be taken seriously. The room of requirement, Hermione said as they crossed the grounds. That's our best lead. If Voldemort hid the diadem at Hogwarts, he'd need somewhere that could conceal an object indefinitely. Somewhere most people don't even know exists. The room where Dumbledore's army met, Ron said. But bigger. I've heard stories, Fred and George said it can become anything. A storage room, a hiding place, a room where things are hidden, Harry finished. That's the key. You have to ask the room for a place to hide something, not find something. Voldemort would have thought of it as his secret, something no one else could access. They entered the castle through a side door near the kitchens. It was mid-morning on a weekday, students were in classes, the corridors mostly empty. Harry moved through them with the familiarity of 6 years' residency, up staircases that obligingly swung to meet his feet, past portraits that whispered and pointed as he passed. Is that, Lord Potterblack, defeated 15 Death Eaters, the prophet said. Harry ignored them. 7th floor. Left corridor. The stretch of blank wall opposite the tapestry of Barnabas the Barmy and his trolls. He paced 3 times. I need the room where things are hidden. I need the room where things are hidden. I need the room where things are hidden. The door materialized, not the polished door of the DA's practice room, but something rougher. Older. A heavy wooden door banded with iron, the kind that belonged on a medieval storehouse. Harry opened it and stopped. The room beyond was a cathedral of lost things. Towering columns of furniture, books, broken equipment, and forgotten possessions stretched in every direction, disappearing into a hazy distance that shouldn't have been possible within the castle's walls. Thousands of objects, millions, maybe, piled and stacked and scattered across acres of impossible space. Bloody hell, Ron breathed. The diadem's in here somewhere, Hermione said, pulling a device from her bag, a modified sneakoscope that she'd recalibrated with goblin soul detection runes. It hummed in her palm, needle quivering. This should react when we get close to the Horcrux. Soul magic has a distinctive signature, like a wrongness in the air. Split up. Ron suggested. No. Harry shook his head. We stay together. This much ambient magic, this many objects, some of them are probably cursed. I don't want anyone alone if something goes wrong. They moved into the labyrinth. Harry kept his wand lit and his senses sharp, feeling the room's magic press against him like walking through deep water. Old enchantments layered over each other, decades of abandoned spellwork creating a kind of magical static that made his skin prickle. Hermione's detector pulsed steadily, the needle swinging gently left and right as they walked. They passed a stuffed troll, a cabinet that hummed with dark energy, a pile of books that whispered when Harry got too close. They passed broken wands, empty potion bottles, confiscated joke products from generations of students. Left, Hermione said, watching her device. The needle had swung decisively. It's getting stronger. They turned down an aisle of stacked chairs and broken desks. The air grew colder. Harry's rings both reacted, the Potter ring warming, the black ring sending a chill up his arm. Dark magic nearby. Powerful. There, Ron said, pointing. On top of a battered wardrobe, balanced on a bust of an ugly wizard wearing a dusty wig, something glinted. Tarnished silver, shaped in an eagle, Ravenclaw's diadem, lost for 1,000 years, corrupted by the darkest magic known to wizardkind. Hermione's detector screamed. She clicked it off with trembling fingers. That's it. I can feel it from here, it's wrong, Harry. The magic coming off it is, she shuddered. It's like looking at something that shouldn't exist. Harry stepped forward, raising his wand, and the diadem's magic lashed out. Not a physical attack, a psychic one. Whispers slammed into his mind, insidious and cold. Unworthy. You're nothing. A half-blood playing at Lord's. Put me down. Walk away. You don't deserve. Harry's acclimancy shield snapped into place like steel shutters and the whispers cut off mid-word. He reached up, plucked the diadem off the bust with his bare hand, and dropped it into a containment box Ragnarok had provided, lead-lined, rune-carved, designed to suppress soul magic. The box sealed with a click. The wrongness in the air vanished. 3 down, Harry said. 2 to go. Ron exhaled explosively. That was anticlimactic. I was expecting, I dunno. Guardian monsters or something. Voldemort relied on secrecy, not traps, Hermione said. He was so arrogant he believed no one would ever find this room, let alone know to look for a Horcrux here. His ego was his security system. Lucky for us. Harry tucked the containment box into his robes. Let's get out of here before someone notices we're, Mr. Potter. The voice came from the doorway. Harry turned. Severus Snape stood silhouetted in the entrance to the room of requirement, his black robes blending with the shadows behind him, his wand at his side but not raised. His dark eyes moved from Harry to the containment box to Hermione's detector and back. Or should I say Lord Potter Black, Snape continued, his voice carrying that familiar silky disdain, but underneath it, something else. Something calculating. Breaking into the castle. Removing objects of dark magic. Without informing the headmaster. The headmaster is under investigation for fraud and isn't entitled to be informed of anything I do, Harry said calmly. I'm within my legal rights as Lord of Two Houses, the Hogwarts Charter grants, I'm aware of what the Charter grants. Snape stepped into the room. His eyes hadn't left the containment box. I'm also aware of what's in that box. I can feel it. A pause. He made more than one. It wasn't a question. Harry went very still. You know about the Horcruxes. Snape's jaw tightened. Something moved behind his eyes, a war, brief and brutal, fought in the space of a heartbeat. Then, I know what Dumbledore told me. Which was, characteristically, less than the full truth but enough to be useful. Dumbledore told you about them? He told me the Dark Lord had created anchors. That they needed to be destroyed before he could be killed. That Potter, that you, were essential to the process in ways he refused to elaborate on. Snape's lip curled. I have since come to suspect that his refusal to elaborate was because the elaboration involved your death. The corridor outside was silent. Inside the room of requirement, surrounded by the detritus of 1,000 forgotten lives, Harry faced the man who tormented him for 5 years and saw, for the first time, something that looked like it might be loyalty. Twisted, bitter, buried under years of poison, but real. You've been spying on Voldemort for Dumbledore, Harry said. Not a question. For 15 years. Why? The word hung between them. Snape's face was a mask, but the mask cracked, just for an instant. Pain underneath. Old, deep, unhealed. Your mother, Snape said. Nothing else. Just those 2 words, carrying a weight of grief and guilt and love that Harry hadn't expected and didn't fully understand. Hermione made a soft sound. Ron's hand tightened on his wand. Harry looked at Snape and made a decision. I'm going to destroy Voldemort, Harry said. Not die fighting him. Not sacrifice myself. Destroy him. And I'm going to do it my way, without Dumbledore's plan, without his timeline, without his acceptable losses. He held Snape's gaze. If you want to help, genuinely help, not report back to Dumbledore, then I could use someone inside Voldemort's circle. Someone who can tell me where the snake is. Snape was silent for a very long time. The room of requirement seemed to hold its breath around them. The snake is always with him, Snape said finally. Always within reach. If you want the snake, you need the Dark Lord distracted, truly distracted, not merely engaged. He keeps it close because he knows, on some instinctive level, that it carries something precious. Can you create that distraction? When the time comes? What are you offering in return? Your freedom. When this is over, when Voldemort is dead and the war is won, I'll use every scrap of political capital I have to see you cleared of all charges. Pardoned. Free to live whatever life you want, without Azkaban or exile hanging over you. Snape studied him. You could do that. I hold 2 Wisengamot seats, the political backing of 7 allied houses, and the largest personal fortune in Wizarding Britain. And I just publicly defeated and humiliated the man who was previously the most powerful political force in the country. Harry didn't blink. Yes. I can do that. Another silence. Then Snape gave a single, sharp nod. When the time comes. Send word. I'll be ready. He turned and swept out of the room, robes billowing in that dramatic way he'd perfected. Harry watched him go and felt something shift, another piece of the puzzle clicking into place. Did you just recruit Snape? Ron said incredulously. I think I did. Bloody hell. Ron ran a hand through his hair. What's next, Malfoy? Don't tempt fate. Come on, let's get this to Gringotts. The diadem was destroyed that evening. Harry watched through the observation window of Gringotts' deepest ritual chamber as 3 goblin cursebreakers worked in concert, their chanting low and rhythmic, the runes they'd inscribed on the chamber floor glowing white-hot as they unraveled the soul fragment piece by piece. It screamed. The fragment of Voldemort's soul screamed as it was pulled apart, a sound that wasn't audible so much as felt, a psychic shriek of rage and terror that pressed against Harry's occlumency shields like a fist. Then it was gone. The diadem lay on the chamber floor, tarnished but clean. The wrongness had departed. "For down," Ragnarok said beside him. "The locket was destroyed this morning while you were at the castle. That leaves only the snake and the fragment in your scar. How's the extraction progressing?" "Slowly but well. Another 3 sessions should be sufficient. The fragment is weakening, it loses cohesion each time the others are destroyed, as though the soul network is failing." Ragnarok paused. "You may experience some changes as the fragment diminishes. The connection to the Dark Lord will fade. Any abilities or perceptions granted by its presence, Parseltongue. The visions. Yes. Those will likely disappear as the fragment is fully removed." Harry considered that. Parseltongue had saved his life more than once. The visions had been torment, but also intelligence. Losing them was a price. A price worth paying. "Continue the extractions," Harry said. "I want this thing out of me before we move on Voldemort." "As you wish, Lord Potterblack." 2 weeks passed. Autumn crept over London in shades of gold and rust. Harry's sessions with the goblin healers continued, each one leaving him lightheaded and oddly euphoric, as though a weight he'd carried so long he'd forgotten it was being lifted piece by piece. He attended the Wisengamot twice during this period. The first session was procedural. The independent investigation into payments from the Black Vault to sitting members had resulted in 4 suspensions and 2 resignations. Dumbledore himself had stepped down as Chief Warlock, pending full resolution of the civil matter. The position sat vacant, fought over by 3 factions that couldn't agree on a replacement. Harry didn't put himself forward. Not yet. He was 16, the political capital was better spent building alliances than grasping for positions he'd grow into. The second session was more significant. Harry proposed, through Augusta Longbottom, as a more seasoned voice, a reform to the magical guardianship system. Independent oversight of all minors' estates. Mandatory welfare checks. Financial transparency requirements. The bill passed 31-8. It was the first legislation Harry had shepherded into existence. It wouldn't be the last. He returned to Hogwarts in the 3rd week of September, not as a fugitive raiding the castle, but officially, as a student. A student with private quarters in the tower that had once been reserved for Hogwarts governors, with freedom to come and go, with a seat at the high table during formal events. McGonagall, now acting headmistress, Dumbledore having taken a leave of absence that everyone understood was permanent in all but name, had arranged everything. The first night back, Harry sat in his private quarters, comfortable, spacious, overlooking the lake, and felt the strangeness of it. Last year, he'd slept in a dormitory with 4 other boys, subject to curfews and common room rules and Umbridge's madness. Now he had a door that answered only to his blood and a schedule that was his own to command. It was better. But it was also lonelier. A knock on his door, the magical kind, a specific pattern that he'd given only to friends. "Come in." Hermione and Ron entered together, carrying books and butterbeer and the comfortable familiarity of 6 years' friendship. Ron immediately sprawled on the sofa. Hermione perched on the arm of a chair and pulled out a sheaf of parchment. "Update," she said. "I've been corresponding with Ragnarok about the snake. Based on Snape's intelligence and some analytical work the goblins have done on Voldemort's movement patterns, they track dark magic signatures as part of their security network. We've narrowed down 3 likely locations for his base of operations." She spread a map on the table. 3 points marked in red, 1 in Albania, 1 in the Yorkshire countryside, 1 on the coast of Norfolk. Albania's where he hid before his resurrection, so probably not his current base. Too obvious, Ron said, picking up seamlessly. Norfolk is possible but exposed, coastal, hard to ward against both Muggle and magical approach. Yorkshire's the most likely. Isolated, defensible, and there's an old wizarding property there, Riddle House, Little Hangleton. His father's village, Harry said. Where he made the ring. Where he killed his father, Hermione corrected quietly. The graveyard where he was resurrected is there too. He has a pattern of returning to places of power, places connected to his identity. Then that's where we'll find him. Harry studied the map. And the snake will be with him. When do we move? Ron asked. Not if. When? The scar fragment extraction finishes next week. Once that's done and confirmed, once I'm clean, we go after the snake. And Voldemort. Harry looked up from the map. All at once. No half measures. We destroy the last Horcrux and kill him in the same engagement. That's risky, Hermione said carefully. If something goes wrong, everything we've done has been risky. The difference is, this time we're choosing the risk instead of having it forced on us. Harry tapped the map. Ron, I want a full battle plan. Approach routes, fallback positions, team composition. We're not going in alone, I'll have Tonks and a squad of Aurors as backup, plus whatever the goblins can contribute. Goblins? Ron raised an eyebrow. Ragnarok has offered a strike team. Cursebreakers with combat training. They want Voldemort dead nearly as much as we do, he's threatened goblin sovereignty twice and they take long grudges. Harry smiled. This isn't going to be a desperate last stand, Ron. It's going to be an assault. Planned, resourced, executed with precision. We're going to war, properly, for the first time. Ron's eyes were bright. His strategist's mind was already working, Harry could practically see the plans forming behind his eyes. Give me 2 days. I'll have options for you. Take 3. Do it right. Hermione was watching Harry with that look again, the assessing one, the one that saw more than he sometimes wanted seen. You're different, she said. Since this started. Not bad different, just, more. More yourself. That's exactly what it is, Harry said. I spent 15 years being less than I was supposed to be. Someone decided I was too dangerous whole, so they kept me in pieces. Now I'm whole. He flexed his ringed hands. It's a good feeling. It looks good on you, she said simply. And then, because she was Hermione, now, about the potions essay due Thursday, Harry laughed. A real laugh, full and easy. Some things never change. I should hope not, she said primly, and opened her textbook. The final extraction session happened on a Tuesday afternoon in Gringotts' medical wing. 3 goblin healers worked while Harry lay on a stone table, shirtless, the scar on his forehead pulsing with dark light as they drew the fragment out. It hurt. Not as badly as the previous sessions, the fragment was weak now, barely clinging to existence, its connection to Voldemort's diminished soul network fraying with each destroyed Horcrux. But it still hurt, a tearing sensation, like pulling a thorn that had grown roots deep into his brain. Harry gritted his teeth and endured. He'd endured worse. The Cruciatus. The possession in the Ministry atrium. 15 years of the Dursleys. This was finite. This was ending. The lead healer chanted something in gobbledygook, harsh, percussive syllables that rang with power, and pulled. Harry felt it tear-free, felt the absence like a missing tooth, felt the cold void where the fragment had lived since he was 15 months old. Then warmth rushed in to fill the gap. His own magic, uncontaminated, claiming the space that had never been rightfully occupied. It felt like the first clean breath after years of breathing through a filter he hadn't known was there. Done, the healer said. The fragment is contained. You are clean, Lord Potterblack. Harry sat up slowly. The world looked different. Not visually, the same stone walls, the same goblin healers, the same ritual implements. But the quality of his perception had shifted. Cleaner. Sharper. Like upgrading from an old radio to crystal clear sound. He touched his forehead. The scar was still there, a scar was just tissue, physical damage. But the magic behind it was gone. The connection to Voldemort was severed. He was, for the first time in his life, entirely and only himself. How do you feel? Ragnar asked from the doorway. Harry stood. Rolled his shoulders. Stretched his magic outward experimentally, and gasped. It was bigger. Stronger. The fragment had been suppressing him, he realized. Drawing on his magical core to sustain itself, like a parasite. Without it, his full power was, he raised his hand and cast a wandless lumos. Light blazed from his palm, not the soft glow of a standard spell, but a white gold radiance that lit the entire chamber and made the goblins shield their eyes. Harry extinguished it with a thought. I feel, he said slowly, like I've been running with weights my whole life and someone just took them off. Ragnar nodded. The soul fragment was a significant drain on your magical core. We estimated it consumed approximately 20 to 30% of your available power. That power is now entirely yours. 20 to 30%. Harry had already been strong enough to defeat 15 Death Eaters solo. Now he had a third more magic than that fight had required. He thought of Voldemort, who'd face him without the comfort of his Horcrux network, without the fragment that had once connected them, without any understanding of what Harry had become. Destroy the fragment, Harry said. And tell me when you're ready for the assault planning. We move on Little Hangleton in 5 days. The plan Ron devised was elegant in its simplicity. 3 teams, 3 objectives, simultaneous execution. Team 1, Harry, Hermione, and a squad of goblin cursebreakers, would breach the Riddle House through the main approach under heavy shielding. Their objective, reach Voldemort and the Snake. Team 2, Tonks and 8 Aurors, hand-picked for loyalty and skill, would establish a perimeter around the property, preventing escape and handling any Death Eater defenders positioned outside the house. Team 3, Ron, directing from a command position using enchanted mirrors for communication, would coordinate the engagement, redirect resources as needed, and manage the critical timing of the Snake's destruction. The Snake had to die before Voldemort did. That was the non-negotiable constraint. As long as Nagini lived, Voldemort had one anchor to life. Kill the Snake, and he became mortal, killable as any man. Snape's our ace, Harry told the assembled team 2 nights before the assault. They were gathered in a Kensington flat, Aurors, goblins, friends, around a table covered in maps and tactical notes. He'll be inside. When we breach, he'll draw the Snake away from Voldemort, separate them, create a window for us to take the serpent. And then? Tonks asked. And then I kill Voldemort. Harry said it simply, without bravado. A statement of fact, as certain as gravity, as final as dawn. The room was quiet. Then Kingsley, who'd been brought in after the Diagon Alley battle and had quietly transferred his loyalty from Dumbledore's order to Harry's coalition, spoke. There will be Death Eaters in that house. Possibly a dozen or more. Even with 3 teams, I'll handle them, Harry said. My job is to clear the path to Voldemort. The goblins protect my flanks. The Aurors contain the perimeter. Ron coordinates. Hermione handles the Snake with a goblin-forged blade Ragnar is providing. He looked at her. You up for this? Hermione met his eyes steadily. The girl who'd been petrified by a basilisk at 12, who'd been cursed by Dolohov at 15, who'd turned herself into a walking library of combat magic over the past weeks, she nodded without hesitation. I'll kill the Snake. Then we're set. Everyone rest tomorrow. We go at dawn the day after. The morning of the assault was cold and clear, early October, frost on the grass, the sky the pale blue of an unwritten page. Harry apparat to the staging point, a hilltop overlooking Little Hangleton, at 5:47 a.m. The others arrived in ones and twos over the next 6 minutes, silent and focused. The Riddle House sat at the top of the village hill, a dark, decrepit manor that loomed over the houses below it like a vulture perched on a corpse. Harry could feel the dark magic from here, a miasma of wards and curses and the unmistakable taint of Voldemort's presence. "Wards?" he asked. One of the goblin curse-breakers, a scarred veteran named Grashnak, answered. 4 layers. Outer detection ring, inner repulsion barrier, anti-apparition net, and a Fidelius variant on the house itself. Can you crack them? Give us 3 minutes once we start. You have 3 minutes from my mark. Harry looked around at his people, Aurors, goblins, friends. Ron stood at the command mirror, already connected to Tonks's team and the goblin squad. Hermione stood at his side, a goblin-forged short sword strapped to her back beneath her robes, the blade infused with basilisk venom, capable of destroying a Horcrux with a single cut. Harry breathed. Felt his magic, vast and clean and entirely his own, coiled in his chest like a living thing. Felt the Potter ring warm on his hand, the black ring cold. Felt the weight of everything he'd fought for in the past month settle onto his shoulders like armor. "Mark," he said. Grashnak and his team went to work. Goblin curse-breaking was nothing like the wizarding variant, it was brutal, efficient, industrial. Where a human curse-breaker might spend hours carefully disassembling a ward layer by layer, goblins attacked the runic foundation directly. Brute mathematical precision applied to magical architecture. The wards resisted. The wards screamed. The wards fell, 1 layer, 2 layers, 3, the anti-apparition net shredding like paper, the repulsion barrier collapsing inward. The Fidelius variant was harder. Grashnak swore in gobbledygook, adjusted his approach, and Harry felt the moment it gave way, a sudden visibility, like a curtain being torn aside. The Riddle House snapped into full focus, and every person on the hilltop could see it clearly for the first time. "Wards down," Grashnak reported. "Go." Harry went. He covered the distance to the house at a dead sprint, magic already flowing around him in a visible aura, golden white, crackling with power. The front door exploded inward before he reached it, blown off its hinges by a wandless blasting curse that he threw without breaking stride. Inside, darkness. Then spellfire. Death Eaters pouring out of side rooms, roused by the ward collapse, still pulling on masks and raising wands. Harry hit the first 3 before they could finish drawing, stunners so powerful they cracked the wall behind the falling bodies. A 4th managed a curse, a cutting hex that Harry caught on a conjured shield of compressed air. He responded with a bludgeoning curse that sent the man through a wall and into the room beyond. The goblin curse-breakers flanked him, short, fast, vicious. They didn't use wands, they used runic gauntlets that channeled spells through finger gestures, allowing them to cast while holding weapons in their other hands. 2 Death Eaters fell to goblin blades before they even knew they were there. "Potter!" The roar came from above, the 2nd floor. A voice like ice and venom, inhuman with rage. "You dare, I dare quite a lot these days," Harry said to no one in particular, and took the stairs 3 at a time. The 2nd floor hallway was a kill zone. 3 Death Eaters stationed at intervals, wands already casting. Harry raised a shield that swallowed their curses, a Potter family magic shield, anchored to his bloodline, nearly unbreakable, and walked through their fire like it was rain. He didn't bother with individual spells. He pushed raw magic outward in a wave, not a specific incantation, just force, shaped by intent. The 3 Death Eaters were slammed against the walls simultaneously, their wands flying free, their bodies going limp. At the end of the hallway, a door. Behind it, Harry could feel him. The cold, alien presence of Tom Riddle's fractured soul. And another presence, sinuous, ancient, dripping with dark magic. The snake. Harry sent a pulse through the black ring, the signal to Snape. Then he kicked the door open. The room beyond was large, a former drawing room, maybe, stripped of all furniture except a throne-like chair near the fireplace. Voldemort sat in it. He was exactly as Harry remembered from the graveyard, tall, skeletal, inhuman. Red eyes blazing in a chalk-white face. Nagini coiled at his feet, her massive head raised, tongue flickering. And behind Voldemort, half hidden in shadow, Snape. Wand in hand. Waiting. Harry Potter. Voldemort's voice was silk over razors. He stood slowly, wand rising. You've grown bold. Foolish, but bold. Coming to me, into my home, your father's home, Harry corrected. You murdered him for it. Just like you murder everything you can't control. Voldemort's eyes narrowed. Something moved across his face, surprise, maybe, at the tone. The Harry Potter he remembered had been a frightened 14-year-old in a graveyard. The Harry Potter standing before him now was something entirely different. You've been busy, Voldemort said softly. I've heard. Dumbledore's golden boy turns on his master. How delightful. I confess I considered approaching you, offering an alliance. After all, we've both been betrayed by the old man. We have nothing in common. Oh, but we do. Or did. Voldemort tilted his head, a reptilian gesture, inhuman. I can feel it, or rather, I can feel its absence. The piece of me that lived in you. It's gone. Destroyed. Something flickered in Voldemort's red eyes. The first crack in his composure, not fear, not yet, but the beginning of understanding. The others, all gone. The ring. The locket. The diary, that was years ago, actually. The cup. The diadem. Harry held up his hand, counting them off. Every piece of your soul that you hid, every anchor, every insurance policy, gone. There's just you and the snake, Tom. And in about 30 seconds, there won't even be the snake. Voldemort moved faster than Harry expected, not toward him, but toward Nagini, reaching for the serpent with one hand while his wand came up with the other. But Snape was faster. A flash of silver light, a spell Harry didn't recognize, and Nagini was hurled across the room, away from her master, toward the window. The snake hit the wall with a meaty thud and dropped, stunned but not dead, her massive coils thrashing. Traitor! Voldemort screamed, spinning on Snape, and in that moment of divided attention, Hermione was there. She'd come through the door behind Harry, quiet as a ghost, and she was already moving. The goblin-forged sword sang as she drew it, a high, clear note that cut through the chaos like truth through lies. She crossed the room in 3 steps, raised the blade, and brought it down on Nagini's thrashing body with all the strength and precision that weeks of practice and years of determination could provide. The blade bit deep. Venomed steel met cursed flesh and the snake's body erupted in black smoke and an inhuman shriek that matched the ones Harry had heard in the ritual chambers of Gringotts. The last Horcrux died, and Harry felt it through his rings, through his blood, through the magic of the world itself. A severing. A completion. The last thread connecting Tom Riddle to immortality, cut. Voldemort staggered. His face, already inhuman, contorted with something that might have been agony, might have been terror. For the first time in decades, Lord Voldemort was mortal. And he knew it. No, he whispered. Then louder, no, he turned on Harry with murder in his eyes and cast the killing curse. Harry didn't dodge. Didn't shield. He reached deep into the well of his magic, the full, unrestrained power of a Potter Lord, unshackled by parasitic soul fragments, undiminished by years of suppression, and he answered. Not with the killing curse. Not with dark magic or desperate improvisation. With the spell his mother had died casting, the only magic that had ever defeated Tom Riddle. Love, channeled through sacrifice, shaped into a weapon by sheer force of will. Golden light erupted from Harry's wand, not a spell, not exactly, but a declaration. A statement of intent backed by the full weight of his bloodline's magic. It met the green light of the killing curse in the space between them and swallowed it. Voldemort's eyes went wide. The golden light didn't stop. It surged forward, growing, brightening, filling the room like dawn breaking through centuries of darkness. Voldemort raised every shield he had, powerful, ancient, terrible defenses learned over decades of studying the darkest arts. The light tore through them like paper. It struck Voldemort in the chest and he screamed, not the controlled fury of a Dark Lord, but the raw, animal shriek of a soul meeting its end. The light burned through him, unraveling the dark magic that held his broken body together, undoing 50 years of corruption and murder and choices made in the service of a fear he'd never conquered. Tom Riddle was afraid of death. And in the end, death came for him anyway, carried on golden wings, delivered by the son of the woman he'd murdered, powered by a love he'd never understood and therefore never defended against. The light faded. Where Voldemort had stood, there was nothing. No body. No ash. Just empty air and the faint smell of ozone, like the aftermath of lightning. Silence. Then Hermione's voice, shaking, "Harry." He turned. She was standing over the dead snake, sword still in hand, splattered with black ichor. Ron's voice crackled through the communication mirror, "Harry, Harry, what happened?" The mirror went white. "He's dead," Harry said. His voice was steady. Calm. "Voldemort's dead." Snape was against the far wall, where Voldemort's reflexive curse had thrown him. He was bleeding from a gash on his temple, but his eyes were clear, and fixed on Harry with an expression that might have been wonder. "Lily's magic," Snape said quietly. "You used her magic. I used mine." Harry holstered his wand. "She gave it to me. It was always mine." Downstairs, sounds of the mop-up, Auror securing prisoners, goblins clearing the remaining rooms. Outside, Tonks's voice raised in a victory shout that was quickly echoed by others. The news spreading outward in waves of relief and disbelief. Harry walked to the window and looked out at Little Hangleton. The sun was fully up now, golden light flooding the village, burning off the last of the morning frost. Somewhere down there, Muggles were starting their days. Making tea. Walking dogs. Living lives untouched by the war that had just ended in this decrepit house on the hill. It was over. He felt it in his bones, the absence of threat, the lifting of the weight he'd carried since he was 11 years old and first heard the name Voldemort. It was over. Hermione appeared at his side. Then Ron. He'd operate from the command position the moment the all-clear sounded. They stood together at the window, the three of them, as they'd always been, as they always would be. "What now?" Ron asked. Harry smiled. "Now we live." The weeks after Voldemort's death were chaos, the good kind. Celebrations that lasted days. A ministry shake-up that put Amelia Bones in the minister's chair. Trials for captured Death Eaters, proper trials, with evidence and defense counsel and verdicts that held up to scrutiny. Snape testified under Veritaserum about his years as a double agent, and Harry made good on his promise, a full pardon, delivered personally by the new minister. Dumbledore's civil case was resolved quietly, almost anticlimactically. Full financial restitution, every Canute returned to the Potter and Black vaults. A formal censure on his record. A permanent ban from holding guardianship over any minor. He accepted it all without contest. Harry saw him once more, at Hogwarts, in late October. McGonagall had officially taken the headmistress position, and Dumbledore had come to collect his personal effects from the office he'd occupied for decades. Harry found him there by accident, or perhaps by the castle's design, the old stones having a sense for narrative closure. "Harry." Dumbledore looked up from a box of books. He was wearing simple robes, grey, unadorned. He looked smaller without the trappings of office. Older. More human. "Professor." They regarded each other across the office, an office that already bore McGonagall's touch, tartan throws on the chairs, a tin of biscuits on the desk. "You killed him," Dumbledore said. "Without the sacrifice I believed was necessary." "Yes. I was wrong. About many things, but about that most of all. I convinced myself your death was inevitable, that the prophecy demanded it. That I was simply managing the process. Ensuring it was meaningful." He closed his eyes. It was the same arrogance that drove everything else. The certainty that my understanding was the only understanding. "Yes," Harry said again. "It was. I am sorry, Harry. Not as a strategy. Not to gain anything. Simply, sorry. For all of it." Harry looked at this man, brilliant, flawed, dangerous in his certainty. A man who'd done terrible things for reasons he genuinely believed were good. A man who'd shaped Harry's entire life according to a design that served a war, not a child. "I believe you," Harry said. "And I accept your apology. But I don't forgive you, not yet. Maybe not ever. That's my right. It is. Entirely. What will you do now?" Dumbledore looked around the office one last time. "I have been offered a position at the International Confederation, advisory, no authority over individuals. Research and consultation." A faint smile. "It seems I am still useful, provided someone else holds the reins. That sounds appropriate. Harry." Dumbledore stepped forward, then stopped, respecting the distance between them. "For what it's worth, and I know it may not be worth much, I am proud of you. Not because of how you killed Voldemort. Because of how you held me accountable. Because you demanded better, from me, from the Wizengamot, from the entire world. That is a harder thing than killing a Dark Lord." Harry felt something move in his chest, not forgiveness, not yet, but the beginning of the possibility of it. A door left unlocked, even if not yet opened. "Goodbye, Professor." "Goodbye, Lord Potterblack." Harry walked out of the office and down the spiral staircase. The gargoyle sealed behind him with a scrape of stone. And Harry kept walking, out through the corridors of Hogwarts, past students who whispered and pointed, past portraits that bowed as he passed, out the great oak doors and into the October sunshine. Hermione was waiting on the steps. Ron beside her. Tonks across the courtyard, hair bright pink, arguing cheerfully with a goblin envoy who'd come to finalize the new trade agreement Harry had brokered between Gringotts and the Ministry. His people. His life. Chosen, not assigned. Harry jogged down the steps to meet them, the morning sun warm on his face, both rings glinting on his hands, one gold, one silver, both humming with the quiet power of a life finally and fully his own. He was 16 years old. He was lord of 2 ancient and noble houses. He had a war's aftermath to manage, a world to help rebuild, newts to sit, and a future stretching out before him, unknowable and unscripted and entirely, beautifully his. Not a weapon. Not a pawn. Not a sacrifice. Just Harry. And that was more than enough.